Previously, as Antares, the Monarch of Destruction, unleashes a massive mana wave for Jin Wu to sense his location, declaring, "I'm right here." The mana wave is so powerful that it is felt around the entire world and reaches Jinwoo. Antares says, "I've already taken the lives of tens of millions of your kind. How much longer are you planning to hide?" Jinwoo responds, "I will come and meet you soon." Fast forward. Antares stood on the rooftop of a ruined building, staring out over the battlefield. He noticed that Sung Jin Wu had been eerily quiet since that day and wondered what the hunter might be planning. Facing an army of 10 million, a head-on charge would be suicide. Perhaps Jin Wu had withdrawn, hidden in the deepest abyss. As Antares brooded, a rocket slammed into him without warning, followed by more missiles that rained down in quick succession. Fire and smoke swallowed the area. Military jets circled above and radioed that the target had been struck, though from their vantage it was impossible to tell whether the blow had been effective. While soldiers and pilots tried to verify the strike, the land itself began to shimmer with an ominous light. A gigantic, unblinking eye opened on the field, and a towering shadow took form. The presence coalesced into Antares, who, finding the spectacle dull, dismissed it as boring, then erased every soldier nearby in an instant. The scene cut to the shadow castle created for Sung Jinwoo's use. Inside, Jinwoo sat in silence, plotting his next move. His gaze drifted to a message scrawled on the wall. A small smile crossed his face as he thought of Beru and silently offered thanks. From the darkness, Beru stepped forward with tears in his eyes. He understood that Jin Wu intended to face the Monarch of Destruction. Bellian appeared as well, and warned that the coming fight was far too dangerous. Igris echoed Bellian's concern. Jinwoo acknowledged their worry, but made it clear that some dangers had to be met regardless of the cost. Then he asked Bellian what Ashbourne would have done if he were in the same position. Bellian answered that Ashbourne would have acted without hesitation. Nothing would have stopped him from doing what needed to be done. Jinwoo smiled at the reply. In that moment, Bellian saw the ghost of Ashbourne reflected in Jinwoo, and realized they could not keep him from going. Beru, Bellian, and Igris lowered themselves on bended knee and pledged their loyalty. Bellian vowed to stand by Jin Wu until the end. Jinwoo rose and the shadow contingent readied to march. As they moved out, Bellian urged him to contact his family. Jinwoo refused. He explained that if he heard their voices now, he might falter and be unable to move forward. Back on the battlefield, a military plane being chased by a dragon was shot down. The pilot ejected and parachuted to the ground, only to land in a scene of pure slaughter. Monstrous figures were cutting down everything in their path. Terrified, he scrambled for cover when a strange liquid splashed onto his shoulder. The pilot spun to confront a charging creature. He dodged a brutal lunge, fumbled for his weapon, and emptied his magazine point-blank into the monster's face. The bullets had no visible effect. As the creature closed in and the pilot braced for death, he blinked. When his eyes reopened, the attacker lay dead at his feet. Confused, he looked up and found Sung Jin Wu standing nearby. Jin Wu ordered the man to run. More monsters were on the way. The pilot screamed a warning, but Jin Wu lifted his daggers and, without taking a step, drew a single precise slash that wiped the approaching horde from existence. He declared that this was only the first step of the war. After the skirmish, Jin Wu used shadow extraction on the fallen monsters, converting their remnants into new shadow soldiers who would stand under his command. The scene returned to Antares. He felt the Shadow Monarch's presence and informed the other monarchs that Jin Wu had arrived. Yogman urged an immediate all-out strike, while Tarnac pointed out he could not detect any army of the dead among Jin Wu's soldiers. Antares suspected Jin Wu was deliberately spreading his forces across the field, absorbing enemy numbers little by little. He judged the hunter was buying time by avoiding a direct clash, and wondered what the Shadow Monarch's true objective could be. In Korea, Woo Jin-chul watched the news with a hollow expression. Reporters said the hunters who had gone to subjugate the demons had been wiped out, and that U.S. military units sent to buy time for evacuations had also been annihilated. The footage showed a world slipping into ruin. Wu reflected grimly that after Canada, even the United States, the planet's most powerful military, was being overrun. All humanity could do now was hope for a miracle. The thought of what might actually stop this calamity felt impossible. The view cut back to the battlefield where hundreds of fresh shadow soldiers surged forward like a black tsunami, swallowing ground as they advanced. Darkness spread across the field, swallowing light and sound. A streak of purple light sliced through the chaos. It was Jin Wu, cutting down monsters and expanding his ranks through shadow extraction. As he moved, a giant-type creature locked onto him and unleashed a devastating blow. The impact rippled across the plain. From the dust, Jin Wu emerged unharmed, having evaded the strike. He drove forward, aiming for the monster's leg, and with one clean swing of his dagger severed it. Before the creature could recover, the shadow army flooded in and tore it apart. Standing amid the remains, Jin Wu sensed movement above. He looked up to see dragons crowding the sky, spiraling downward with terrifying speed. Jin Wu considered whether the army of doom had begun its advance. He could not sense the Dragon King among them, so they were not yet at full strength. That detail gave him a little time. He reasoned that if Antares hesitated, Jin Wu only needed to give him a reason to move. Jin Wu used shadow extraction to revive the fallen giant. As dragons closed in, the giant's shadow reached for them and struck, felling several at once. The victory was short-lived. A massive fireball split the sky, and in an instant the resurrected behemoth was blasted to pieces. A colossal dragon descended and proclaimed that it served the Dragon King and would annihilate any who dared oppose him with mere puppets of mana. The dragon had not noticed Jin Wu behind it until the last moment. The beast whirled to face him, only to be cut down with a single decisive swing from Karmash's blade. Its neck cleaved, and life ended instantly. Far away, Antares felt the loss among the dragon forces and acknowledged that the Shadow Monarch was growing stronger. Realizing that further hesitation risked everything, Antares chose to confront Jin Wu in person. He ordered the Monarch of Transfiguration to remain and wait with the ambush, opened portals across the sky, and vowed that he would not let the Shadow Monarch escape. The story shifted to another district where the military tried to contain the chaos in the streets. Their rifles and heavy weapons had no real effect on the invading magical beasts. The commanding officer ordered his troops to keep firing without conserving ammunition, directing them to target limbs in the hope of slowing the monsters and buying time for hunter reinforcements. It was useless. The monsters closed the gap and began slaughtering the soldiers. Just as an ogre charged the line, a single crushing punch sent it flying. Thomas Andre had arrived on the battlefield. Thomas smirked as he took in the scene and told the soldiers that he'd fought the likes of these in dungeons before. There were many of them, but they were not particularly resilient. His presence sparked hope among the troops, who dared to believe that with Thomas here, they might survive. Suddenly, Thomas sensed a powerful presence and spun around. Tarnac, the monarch of steel body, stood among the attacking creatures, regarding him as the same human from their previous encounter. Tarnac sneered that Thomas had been a fragile vessel who nearly died at the beast monarch's hands, and proclaimed himself the king of monstrous humanoids. He made clear that, with a thought, he could end the man's life. Thomas showed no fear. He answered that Tarnac's assessment was wrong. As shadows rose behind him, he made it plain he had no patience for being toyed with. Bellian materialized beside Thomas. The sight of the shadow army at Thomas's back stunned Tarnac. He demanded to know why the shadows were present, assuming they had been hiding within the human's shadow to conceal themselves. Tarnac tried to alert the other monarchs, but his attempt at communication was blocked, intercepted by Tusk. Taken aback, Tarnac realized that this tactic did not resemble the Shadow Monarch's usual direct methods of passing judgment. Rage flared through Tarnac as he began to transform. He concluded the strategy bore a human signature and snarled that he does not qualify to be a monarch. Bruce stepped forward, mana pulsing around him, and demanded that Tarnac take back his words. Insulting his king was a grave offense. Enraged, Tarnac shouted that no mere soldier could stand in the way of monarchs. Fully transformed, the monarch of steel body towered over Baru and readied himself for combat. The scene cut to the wider sky, where the Shadow Monarch, Sung Jin Wu, faced Antares, the monarch of destruction. Antares wondered why he could not reach the monarch of steel body telepathically, and suspected either betrayal or direct interference by the Shadow Monarch. Without further warning, Antares struck, determined to kill Jinwoo. The sudden attack stunned Jinwoo and shattered the ground where he'd been standing. When the dust cleared, Antares looked up to find Jinwoo hovering in the air. He had narrowly avoided the blow. Jinwoo summoned his forces. From the shadows, an armada of shadow dragons poured forth and began to rain down toward Antares. Meanwhile in China, seven-star hunter Liu Zhigang was clearing rampaging giants from the streets. After felling one, he muttered that giants weren't much trouble unless they were fought at sea. Then a tremor of power washed over him. The land's magic was quivering. Tens of thousands of hunters must be battling beasts at once. Even from his position, he felt the sting of that mana. The scene cut to Antares, who launched a massive explosion that rocked the battlefield, scattering shards of shadow high into the air. Antares mocked the Shadow Monarch, implying those scattered soldiers were all that remained of Jinwoo's force. He accused the Shadow Monarch of diverting his main troops to confront the Monarch of the Iron Body, while sending only weaklings to stall him. As Antares peered closer, he noticed Sung Jinwoo slipping into a portal. Enraged, Antares surged after the portal, vowing he would not allow the Shadow Monarch to escape. On the far side, Antares froze. The full Shadow Army stood ready, an undeniable sign that Jinwoo had already neutralized the Iron Body Monarch's forces. Turning his gaze, Antares saw Tarnac, the king of monstrous humanoids and monarch of the Iron Body, reduced and broken, missing 3 limbs. Baru sat atop Tarnac, silent and cold. Antares acknowledged that Jinwoo had taken out the Iron Body Monarch's forces first, then moved to draw him out. He conceded to himself that, strategically, it was an effective plan. Antares turned toward Jinwoo and dismissed the show of strength as ultimately meaningless. Suddenly, Yogamont, the monarch of transfiguration, appeared perched atop a ruined building, his presence announcing a new threat. The sky above them filled with countless gates, shimmering portals that opened like wounds in the heavens. Antares declared those gates to be Yogamont's work and announced that through them he could summon limitless reinforcements. Dragons poured into the sky, a hurricane of draconic force ready to crush the Shadow Army. Antares boasted that Jinwoo's plan had been destroyed and that the hunter's miscalculation would be his undoing. Instead of panicking, Jinwoo gave a small, calculating smile and began to recall his shadow soldiers one by one. Antares, seeing the Shadow Army withdraw, assumed Jinwoo had acknowledged the vast difference in their power and was conceding. As the dragons closed in, Jinwoo activated a new ability, a soul-shattering roar granted by the runestone taken from Kamish. That skill unleashed a mana-charged cry that drove weaker beings into despair and incapacitation. A nightmare specifically devastating to the dragon race. The roar struck the dragons and even Yogamont himself, leaving them staggered and felled by its effect. Seizing the moment, Jinwoo materialized beside Antares and seized the monarch by the arm, signaling that Antares would be taken along. Using Shadow Exchange, Jinwoo instantly teleported away with Antares in tow, and in that instant, Antares felt the terrible realization that every move Jinwoo had made up to this point had been orchestrated to produce exactly this moment. The scene shifted to an inhabited island, where Sung Jinwoo and his Shadow Army had taken position. Sung Jinwoo had brought Antares to that isolated location. When Antares asked where they were, Sung Jinwoo explained that the island lay on the opposite side of the world from Antares' forces. Antares quickly grasped the hunter's plan and acknowledged that in a full-scale war, Sung Jinwoo's mana would have been exhausted far sooner, so luring the monarch away alone was a clever tactic. Antares glanced at the castle behind Sung Jinwoo and asked if it belonged to the hunter. Sung Jinwoo confirmed that it did. Antares dismissed the fortress as unimpressive for someone who held the title of Shadow Monarch. Sung Jinwoo prepared for battle, summoning his weapons and noting that the castle would be a fitting place to mark Antares' end. Antares began to transform, declaring that the coming fight would test whether he could hold out until his troops arrived. In an instant, a gigantic dragon materialized before Sung Jinwoo and the Shadow Soldiers. The perspective cut to Lady Selner, watching from a window as dragons ravaged the land below. Director David stood behind her and observed that mana of many types was running wild and spilling across the region. He admitted he had doubted Sung Jinwoo's warnings and asked what they could possibly do now. Lady Selner replied that Jin Wu was not the only hunter left to fight. The scene shifted to Thomas Andre, who was cutting down demons that were attacking the country. As Lady Selner explained that hunters from around the world had joined the struggle, from E rank up through S rank. She noted that an E rank hunter's abilities were only marginally stronger than a normal person's, so beyond wielding magical weapons, their contribution was limited. The same constraints applied, in varying degrees, to D rank and C rank hunters. Typically, an E rank might fell a single beast, a D rank maybe 3, and a C rank around 10. Even S ranks who could kill thousands would eventually be worn down, like stars burning out. Yet when those individual lights fell and traced faint patterns across the sky, the combined shape hinted at something beyond the loss. People called that faint, collective shape hope. The story moved back to Korea, where an aide informed Woo Jin-chul that Jin Wu had succeeded in luring Antares to an uninhabited island near Japan. Woo Jin-chul recalled Jin Wu's explanation. The island spanned tens of kilometers and had once been the site where a giant's gate collapsed, leaving massive lingering mana, perhaps the very reason the hunter had hidden there. The aide asked whether they should dispatch hunters to the island as a precaution. Wu pointed out that nearly all S-rank hunters were currently deployed to the U.S. effort. He questioned what kind of reinforcements they could possibly spare. The aide suggested sending E-rank hunters as a precautionary measure. Wu reminded him that Jinwoo had once been an E-rank hunter himself, and that history showed even an E-rank could rise to become a hero. The scene moved to Jinwoo, who was locked in combat with Antares, the Monarch of Destruction, on an inhabited island. Jinwoo rode atop the massive dragon Kaisel, circling as Antares began gathering a devastating fireball. Before Antares could unleash the blast, a shadow soldier clamped the dragon's jaws shut. As Antares turned toward the saboteur, the figure revealed himself as Bellian, who transformed his sword into a whip to prevent the beast from using its breath. Seizing that opening, Jinwoo's shadow giants surged forward and bound the dragon, holding it immobile. At the same time, Tusk unleashed a powerful spell that struck Antares and drew a pained roar from the monarch. Allowing no time to recover, Beru and Greed charged with blinding speed, slamming into the dragon's face and driving its head into the ground. Simultaneously, Igris channeled lightning through his longsword and struck, electrocuting Antares and inflicting serious damage. From his position in the air, Jin Wu watched his soldiers press the assault against the towering dragon. Seeing the damage accumulate, he noted that the tactic appeared to be working. To everyone's shock, Antares merely smirked and described the situation as amusing. He reminded Jinwoo that he had long taken pleasure in crushing foes through sheer numbers, yet now he found being outnumbered entertaining. Jinwoo was taken aback by the monarch's reaction. Rising to his feet, Antares activated Dragon's Fear and released a deafening roar, vowing to show the hunters the true power at his command. The wave of terror caused many of the shadow soldiers to begin disintegrating. Watching his forces dissolve, Jinwoo realized he could not maintain control and deliberately recalled his summons. Before he could regroup, Antares materialized directly in front of him. Antares unleashed a breath of fire with devastating force. The blast vaporized Kaisel in an instant and seared the island's surface. When the smoke cleared, Antares stood amid the ruin and declared that this demonstration was the true power he embodied. He explained that the avatar of destruction did not hesitate to sacrifice itself for the sake of war. He described himself as an amalgam of blood, screams, madness, and ruin, a being forged solely for conflict. In short, Antares identified himself as the king of dragons and the monarch of destruction. Confronted with that force, Jinwoo realized that even the vast mana that had sunk into the earth after the King of Giants' death had been insufficient to blunt Antares' assault. He understood that even immortal soldiers would be annihilated by a direct hit from the monarch's breath. While Jinwoo absorbed that grim truth, Antares reverted to humanoid form and descended before him. Antares told the Shadow Monarch there was no need to be overly nervous. He admitted that when Jinwoo had grabbed his arm earlier, he could have broken free. He added that he had not done so because Jinwoo had impressed him by cornering him. As a fellow monarch, Antares said, he had hoped for a quiet conversation. He reminded Jinwoo that, If the hunter had inherited the previous Shadow Monarch's memories, he would know their true enemy was not of this world. That enemy lay beyond the skies, the army of the rulers. Antares warned that the ruler's only purpose was to exterminate monarchs born of darkness. He emphasized that Jin Wu was no exception to that threat. Antares admitted he had once planned to eliminate Jinwoo and then prepare to fight the rulers, but witnessing the hunter's fighting style had changed his mind. He argued that Jinwoo's talents differed from Ashbourne's, and that, within those differences, he saw the prospect of glorious victory. Antares offered that, if Jinwoo wished his family spared, he would ensure their safety. He pledged that he could also preserve Jinwoo's country if asked, and if Jinwoo desired that Antares and his soldiers leave the land, they would withdraw quietly. Antares urged Jinwoo to become the ruler of the land, not merely of the castle on the hill. He clarified that he meant rule over the entire planet. Antares asserted that Jinwoo possessed the qualifications to hold such power. Extending his hand, Antares proposed that all Jinwoo needed to do was take it. He promised that, together, they could defeat the ruler's soldiers and restore peace and freedom to Jinwoo's family, his nation, and the world. Finally, Antares asked whether the Shadow Monarch would join him in alliance. Hearing Antares' words, Jinwoo scoffed and dismissed the offer as laughable. He added that Antares' eyes already betrayed a desire to kill, so the promise could not be trusted. Watching Jinwoo prepare for battle, Antares admitted he could no longer hide his intent. He said the offer had been his final act of mercy. Then Antares lunged toward Jinwoo. As Antares' arm reached out, it transformed into a massive dragon claw. At the last instant, Jinwoo jumped back and summoned Kaisel. While Antares finished his transformation, he spat a gout of flame at Jinwoo and Kaisel, but both evaded the attack. Jinwoo ordered Kaisel to dive downward. Once within range, Jinwoo leapt at the dragon's neck and slashed along its throat as he landed atop Kaisel. Looking at the cut, he realized it hadn't even left a scratch. Antares taunted that such blows could not harm him. Jinwoo ordered Kaisel to pull back, but the dragon unleashed dragon's fear and stunned his mount. Before Antares could press the advantage, Kaisel used his tail to snatch Jinwoo and hurl him out of immediate danger. Jinwoo landed on his feet and glanced back toward the battle. A moment later, Kaisel was struck by an immense breath of fire that also threw Jinwoo backward. The impact detonated into a colossal explosion, filling the air with smoke and dust. When the haze cleared, a huge crater marred the island. Antares observed that that kind of strike would not be fatal to him. Without warning, a streak of purple arced toward the dragon's neck. Jinwoo had managed to leap back and latch on to the beast. Clinging to the dragon, Jinwoo judged the hide to be like molten rock and drove his dagger in. His blade had no effect. The dragon's scales were too hardened to pierce. A massive claw swung toward him, and he tumbled clear just in time. While midair, he summoned shadow soldiers. 3 dragons closed in on Antares and opened their assault. Antares roared as one dragon restrained him, while the other 2 unleashed scorching breath. From a distance, Jinwoo watched and feared that even the ancient dragon flames Bellian once led were proving ineffective against Antares. He realized Antares' strength and defense exceeded anything he had faced before. He conceded that his usual tactics would not work against the King of Dragons. Jinwoo began drawing in greater power, telling himself he needed strength capable of tearing through a mountain of armor with his bare hands. Dark mana began to swirl around him as he gathered that force. Meanwhile, Antares had defeated all 3 of Jinwoo's summoned dragons. He mocked the Shadow Monarch, saying that he expected to be defeated by such lowly shadows. But when Antares turned to face Jinwoo, his expression shifted to one of shock. The hunter was now cloaked in a massive dark energy aura. Stunned, Antares muttered, questioning the origin of this power and what scheme Jinwoo might be planning. Jinwoo explained that he could use the power of darkness to form an immense and durable armor, one that would be visible to all living beings on Earth. The dark energy expanded rapidly, dwarfing Antares and making him appear small in comparison. Recognizing the transformation, Antares realized it was Astralization and whispered, "Impossible." He recalled that the Shadow Monarch had originated as one of the fragments of brilliant light, and should not possess any form beyond his original. Antares questioned whether Jinwoo had summoned the power of death to Earth, struggling to comprehend how a human could now wield such control over life and death. Meanwhile, Jin Wu looked at his own hands, thinking that this was the true legacy Ashbourne had left behind. From within his colossal astral form, Jinwoo felt an endless current of power surging through him. Antares, wary now, reminded himself that Jinwoo had lived straddling the realms of the living and dead. Charging up his next attack, Antares reflected that this experience explained how Ashbourne could have entrusted such power to a human. He realized that Jinwoo had been shaping himself for battle long before inheriting this strength and concluded that he had to kill him. Jinwoo was far too dangerous. As Antares unleashed a massive fire attack, Jinwoo did not flinch. He calmly raised his hand and fired a projectile that sliced through the inferno, striking Antares and making the Monarch of Destruction roar in pain. Yet the blow alone was not enough to fell the Dragon King. They stood face to face as the battlefield fell into silence, the tension palpable. In an instant, they clashed, and the collision sent devastating mana waves shattering the surrounding ground. Antares rose to his full height, towering over Jinwoo's immense form. He struck with a claw, but Jinwoo blocked it and countered with a mighty punch that sent a shockwave rippling outward. Antares responded with ferocity, biting into Jinwoo's side, lifting him and hurling him high into the air. Jinwoo crashed to the ground, destroying everything nearby, and as he struggled to regain control, Antares unleashed another fiery breath. Jinwoo narrowly avoided the blast, but one of his arms was destroyed in the process. Despite the injury, he summoned a sword and charged. Antares countered with fire, but Jinwoo blocked it with the blade and slashed through both the flames and Antares himself. Antares retaliated, swinging his tail and launching Jinwoo backward, forcing distance between them. As Jinwoo stabilized, he saw Antares rising into the air, out of immediate reach. The Monarch of Destruction began charging a massive energy attack, and when it erupted, the impact devastated the surrounding area. From the smoke, a dark spear suddenly materialized and pierced Antares' wing, eliciting a scream of agony. Before Antares could react, Jinwoo fired additional dark projectiles, but Antares countered them with a torrent of fire breath. The two fought with all their strength, each attempting to overpower the other. Though Antares' raw power was overwhelming, he landed a decisive blow, and as the dust settled, Jinwoo's massive astral form began to dissipate. From the fading armor, Jinwoo emerged, landing firmly on the ground. Antares towered over him, and he remarked that maintaining such overwhelming power consumed an enormous amount of stamina. Transforming back, he offered a final proposition: join him. Jinwoo rose, resolute, and declared that he would never cooperate with a monster. Enraged, Antares manifested a sword and charge, warning that the Monarch of Transfiguration and the Army of Destruction were annihilating everything Jinwoo cared about. He declared that in the end, Jinwoo would not be able to protect anything. Even as they clashed, Antares continued, telling Jinwoo that even as the king of the dead, he must fear death as a human. He threatened to burn Jinwoo with flames that incinerate death itself and warned that everything Jinwoo tried to protect would soon vanish. Antares managed to disarm Jinwoo and drove his sword through him, noting that Jinwoo must feel the countless cries of suffering across the world. Jinwoo kicked Antares away, creating distance between them. Antares insisted this was war, and he pressed that the cries of humanity under the Army of Destruction must be heard. He placed his sword on Jinwoo's shoulder, commanding that their despair should silence all hope. Jinwoo, undeterred, countered, claiming that he was the one who should speak of despair. Antares failed to notice the Kamish blade hovering in the air. It struck him, distracting him and allowing Jinwoo to jump back. However, the blade could not penetrate the barrier surrounding the Monarch of Destruction. Antares sneered, ridiculing Jinwoo for thinking a dagger forged from a dragon's tooth could harm the King of Dragons. He commented on the irony of a battle between a flame born of darkness and a darkness born of light, predicting the fight's end. Jinwoo, resolute, agreed that the confrontation was reaching its conclusion. Antares asked if Jinwoo had finally acknowledged the futility of resistance. Jinwoo began running toward him, ready for the next move. Seeing this, Antares boasted that the army of destruction did not need to locate them. He would raise their morale by beheading the Shadow Monarch himself. As Jin Wu charged, the sun rose behind him, and he declared, "The sun darkens the shadows." Antares witnessed Jin Wu's most powerful shadow soldiers charging alongside him, holding him in place. He shouted a furious threat, promising to rip Jin Wu to pieces and leave him a miserable death for resisting the King of Dragons. In the chaos, glimpses of Jin Wu's father and Ashbourne appeared alongside him. Finally, the young Jin Wu struck decisively, slicing the Monarch of Destruction in two. In Antares' final moments, Jin Wu asked quietly, wondering if the monarch would see his own end. In Sung Jin Wu's hand, the dagger that once belonged to his father gleamed with dark energy. As Jin Wu struck another decisive attack against Antares, the sky itself began to fracture and ripple with energy. Antares, witnessing this unexpected phenomenon, muttered in disbelief, noting that he had never anticipated such a development. He questioned aloud how it could be possible, recalling that he had seen no gate upon his initial arrival. Connecting two worlds would require an immense amount of energy. Confused, Antares looked to the descending soldiers and asked whether this had been Jin Wu's plan all along. He speculated that the Shadow Monarch had distorted space through the clash of great powers to bring allies from another world to the battlefield. Antares admitted he had assumed Jin Wu merely wanted an undisturbed one-on-one fight. He doubted it was possible for Jin Wu to communicate with the rulers directly. Jin Wu calmly told him that there was a way. The vessels of the rulers, those who had been lent their powers, were still present and had been used. Realizing the truth, Antares looked up at the sky and acknowledged Jin Wu's strategy. He admitted that the Shadow Monarch had utilized the vessels to prepare a gate to this battlefield, securing allies even in the event of his own defeat. Antares reflected that his focus on the smaller-scale battle had led to his total miscalculation. Jin Wu, unwavering, asked Antares if it had been him who had ordered the Monarch of White Flames and the Beast Monarch to attack the Shadow Monarch. Antares, taken aback, asked whether Jin Wu had learned this from the Monarch of White Flames. Jin Wu casually flipped him off and said, "Ashbourne wanted me to send his regards." Infuriated, Antares prepared to strike back at Jin Wu, only to be abruptly impaled by soldiers sent through the gate by the rulers. Looking up, Antares saw the brightest fragment of luminosity hovering in the air, its radiance overwhelming the battlefield. He commented on the overwhelming contrast, noting how the world was covered in both blinding light and deep shadows, realizing he had never stood a chance to win. As his body began to disintegrate in the air, Antares spoke his final words. He would wait in the true, eternal rest, not the illusory one created by the Shadow Monarch. He promised that he and Jin Wu would meet again in that final place. Sung Jin Wu watched calmly, responding, "Don't worry, I'll see you again soon enough." The brightest fragment of brilliant light appeared before Sung Jin Wu, its radiance filling the area. It spoke solemnly, acknowledging Jin Wu's efforts. He had ended the war. The fragment admitted it could never fully express its gratitude. Jin Wu remained calm and replied that he wasn't sure this could be called gratitude, but he had a request, something only the fragment could accomplish. The fragment nodded, promising to do everything within its power to assist him. Jin Wu then asked if he could use the cup of reincarnation one final time. At his words, the other fragments fell silent. The brightest fragment's tone turned serious, questioning whether Jin Wu truly intended to reverse time. He warned that even if time rewound, the consciousness of the monarchs would remain intact. The fragment asked, "You'd still go through with it, even knowing the monarchs who died will return with their memories intact?" Jin Wu confirmed without hesitation. He clarified that he intended to face the monarchs and their armies alone, requesting that no one else be sent to Earth when time was reversed. The fragment remarked, "You are choosing to shoulder the entire war by yourself." He questioned Jin Wu's decision, noting that among all the timelines influenced by the cup, this was the most favorable outcome so far. Holding his father's blade tightly, Jin Wu reflected on the cost of the battle. "I lost too many people," he thought. "I want to bring them back." The fragment warned him of the cup's fragile state. Its durability was nearly exhausted. If Jin Wu failed this time, there would be no second chance. The fragment reminded him that if he stopped now, he would still be remembered as the hero who ended the monarch's invasion. His name would live on forever. But the battle he was about to undertake, no one would ever remember. Closing his eyes, Jin Wu thought of his family, his friends, and everyone he cared about. Rising with resolve, he declared, "I will go back in time." The fragment, impressed by his determination, acknowledged that Jin Wu sought to save not just part of the world, but the entire world with his own hands. He said Jin Wu's resolve reminded him of Ashbourne, the previous Shadow Monarch. He expressed his understanding and wished Jin Wu success. But before proceeding, Jin Wu asked about his shadow soldiers. What would happen to those who didn't exist in the past? The fragment explained, "Beings that overlap with the past will vanish. Those that do not will remain." Jin Wu nodded firmly, replying, "I'm ready." The fragment summoned the cup of reincarnation, raising it solemnly. "May your courage save your world," it said. A brilliant light erupted from the cup, slowly spreading across the planet. People all around the world witnessed the phenomenon. Among them were Jinho, Jin Wu's mother, Jin Ah, Wu Jinchou, Liu Zhigang, Thomas Andre, Baek Yunho, Choi Jong-in, and Hunter Cha Hai-in. All looked to the sky in awe. Over time, the brilliant light gradually enveloped the entire planet, bathing everything in its glow. Slowly, the radiance faded until it finally disappeared, leaving the world on the cusp of a new beginning. The scene shifts to Sung Jin Woo's apartment building. His mother gently tells Gina to wake her brother. We then see a younger Gina calling out, urging Jin Woo to rise. Smiling, she notices, "You're already awake." Jin Woo steps out of his room and sees his mother in the kitchen, cooking. She looks healthy and vibrant, no longer sick. Nearby, his father sits calmly, reading the newspaper. Overcome with emotion at seeing his family together, and well, Jin Woo begins to cry. Concerned, his parents ask why he's suddenly acting this way. He responds softly, "I think I just had a nightmare." Watching his family happy, Jin Woo reflects, "My nightmare's over. Now I'm with my younger sister, my healthy mother, and my father who never disappeared." He continues thinking, "I've been given one last chance to set everything right. I won't waste this opportunity. I can rewrite the future that is yet to come. But just for a little while, isn't it okay to treasure this peace, a reward for everything I've endured? I know that beyond the skies, the monarchs are preparing enormous gates to strike us. For now, if this brief moment of peace doesn't bring harm to anyone, I'd like to enjoy it just a little longer." Later, Jin Woo's mother's doing housework when she finds a note on the table. Written in Jin Woo's hand, it reads, "I'll come back after I'm done with what I need to do." The scene shifts to Baru, who has just defeated a monster alongside Bellian. They sit before a pile of fallen demons. Two figures stand amid the aftermath. Jin Woo observes, "This empty world, filled with nothing but darkness, feels extremely lonely without fighting." He continues, "I managed to defeat the monarchs and killed the monarch of transfiguration, the one at the core of everything. It's been 27 years since I entered the dimensional rift. Finally, the long and grueling battle seems to be drawing to a close. Only a few enemies remain. The Dragon Emperor, Antares and his elite force, the Legion of Destruction. Sitting among countless corpses, Jin Woo thinks, time flows differently in the outside world. Only about 2 years have passed there. He reflects on his family. How are my parents doing? How much has Jina grown? Should I wait until she's a bit older before explaining everything to her? As he's lost in thought, Bellian approaches. All enemies have been eliminated. There are no survivors left, he reports. Hearing this, Jin Woo rises. With Baru and Bellian at his side, he activates shadow extraction on all the defeated foes, preparing for the final confrontation with the remaining monarchs. The scene shifts to Antares, the monarch of destruction, seated upon his throne. A subordinate approaches and reports that the monarch of transfiguration has fallen, asking whether they should move to a safer location. Antares responds calm but resolute. "I am tired of running. We will face the Shadow Monarch here." He reflects on Jin Woo's strategy, using the cup of reincarnation to turn back time. "This was beyond anything I expected." As Antares speaks, a shadow begins forming before his throne. He narrows his eyes. "To think I would meet you again, alive and breathing. But one of us will rest for eternity today." Rising from his throne, Antares introduces himself with authority. I am Antares, the Monarch of Destruction. And you, what is your name? Jin Wu steps forward, unwavering. My name is Jin Wu, he replies. Do you have anything more to say? Antares, standing amid his vast army, simply shakes his head, saying no. Without hesitation, the two monarchs leap toward each other, their armies surging behind them. The ground trembles beneath their power, and the sky darkens as the final battle begins. The clash that will determine the fate of the world. The scene shifts to the outside world, 2 years after the previous events. The United States is in a state of unrest, stirred by a disturbing prophecy. A renowned clairvoyant, Norma Selner, warned the media of an impending harbinger of destruction who would soon descend upon the land. Normally, such prophecies would be dismissed, but Selner was no ordinary psychic. She had accurately predicted several major global events: the death of North Korea's dictator, the terrorist hijacking of passengers, and the stock market collapse triggered by real estate instability. Her flawless track record gave weight to this new warning. She claimed that this harbinger would arrive with an unstoppable army of death, leaving humanity with no chance to escape. There's no way for us to escape from him, she declared. Her proclamation that the end of the world was near sent shockwaves around the globe. The next day above Seoul, a massive black gate appeared in the sky, so immense it spanned almost the entire horizon. News of the gate quickly made global headlines. People from all over gathered beneath the colossal portal, anxious to see what would emerge. Slowly the gate began to open, but nothing came out. The crowd murmured in confusion at the emptiness. Behind them, a lone figure appeared. It was Jin Wu. Waiting for him was a fragment of brilliant light, one of the rulers. Holding flowers in his hands, the ruler greeted Jinwoo warmly. We are glad you've returned safely. Welcome back, Jinwoo. Or should I call you the Shadow Monarch? The ruler added with mild surprise. I didn't expect you to appear in the form of a middle schooler. Jinwoo responded calmly. I thought people might have been frightened if I appeared with a full beard. It's nice to have at least one person welcoming me back. The ruler then admitted, we honestly didn't believe you'd return after taking on everything by yourself. But now I see that every step you take carries the weight of 10,000 soldiers. Jinwoo, curious, asked, I assume you're not here just to present me with flowers? What business does an envoy of the rulers have with me? The fragment replied, the rulers have a message for you. It may take some time to discuss everything. Shall we move somewhere more private? Jinwoo nodded. I have a place in mind that I'd like to visit first. Fast forward, Jinwoo and the fragment of brilliant light sit inside a small ice cream shop. The fragment glances around curiously and asks why Jinwoo chose this place. Jinwoo shrugs lightly and says, after spending so long in a world where there was nothing, it's only natural to want something sweet. The fragment nods politely and then asks, so what did the rulers want to discuss? Jinwoo leans back, cutting to the point. Forget the formalities. Is there a problem? The fragment explains calmly, all immediate threats have been resolved, but the rulers are concerned about the immense power you now hold. Your strength is enough to sway the fate of this entire world. As you know, Earth isn't prepared for the magnitude of your abilities. Jinwoo tilts his head and asks, then why tell me this? The fragment replies, this world, one without mana, is far too fragile to contain such power. If you are willing, we'd like to ask whether you would consider relocating to a world better suited to your abilities. Jinwoo smirks, leaning back in his seat. Instead of the hassle of moving me to another world, you could always just seal me away completely. The fragment nods solemnly. That is possible too, but his expression quickly shifts to horror as he studies Jinwoo closely. Jinwoo notices and raises an eyebrow. Now that I've done my part, are you planning to get rid of me just because you fear my power? Flustered, the fragment quickly reaches into his pocket and pulls out a phone, showing Jinwoo a news article. Lady Selner's face dominates the screen as she warns the public about the arrival of a destructive force. The fragment explains, before your return, Selner issued this prophecy. Back when you disappeared, she wasn't this powerful, but after interacting with our world, her abilities evolved. Jinwoo leans back and murmurs, "So my return is what triggered her evolution as a seer." The fragment confirms. Jinwoo waves a hand dismissively. "We'll discuss this later." The fragment stands, bows respectfully, and says, "Very well, great monarch," before leaving the shop. Left alone, Jin Wu begins to reflect. If every living being has a purpose, then I, having become the Shadow Monarch and stopping the chaos of the monarchs, have fulfilled mine. I've completed my mission. He continues. But now the power I once wielded with purpose feels like a burden. Like nuclear waste after use, am I something the world no longer needs? His attention shifts to a young girl walking past the shop window. His eyes widen. He rushes outside, thinking, from now on, I'll probably continue to question whether I should remain here on Earth. Meanwhile, young Cha Hyen thinks, did ice cream always smell this good? As Jinwoo watches her, he remembers everyone for whom he fought against the enemy alone, saying, if there's a reason to remain in this world, then it's probably because there are still people I love here, and people who love me are still here as well. That alone is enough reason for me to stay, he adds. I'll stay here and find more reasons not to leave. As Cha Hyen turns toward him, the two lock eyes in silence. The scene moved to a police station. Wu Jinshul, now in his 4th year as a criminal investigator, lost in thought. He could not shake a vague sense of loss. It was as if he were forgetting something important. No matter how hard he tried to recall it, nothing concrete came to mind. The more he searched his memory, the heavier that hollow feeling became. A junior investigator approached and handed him a cup of coffee, quietly asking if something was bothering him. Wu offered a faint smile, accepted the coffee, and thanked the junior. Inwardly, he told himself that a busy person had no time for sadness. He should focus on his work. Back inside Criminal Investigation Team 2's office, the atmosphere felt tense. As he walked among the junior officers, Wu noticed a man who was trembling with fear. He asked the officers who the man was. The man suddenly cried out, his voice unsteady. He said a monster, a shadow, had risen from the ground and told him that if he did not turn himself in within 24 hours, he would regret being alive. The man pushed himself to his feet and begged to be locked up, insisting it was all his fault and pleading for the investigators to take him in. Wu stared, stunned, and asked whether all of them had seen the same shadow. The man answered firmly that yes, they had all seen it. Wu wrestled with the thought of how he would report such a claim to his superiors. At that moment, a senior officer interrupted, telling Wu to leave the formal reporting to the juniors and to join them in the meeting room. Later, in the meeting room, Wu listened as his superior explained the situation. Visibly shaken, Wu asked what the senior meant by releasing the suspects instead of formally charging them. The senior spoke softly. Why would they do that? Glancing toward the window as if wary of eavesdroppers, and warned that someone might overhear them. Looking out the window for a beat, he added that the plan was to release the suspects but keep them under observation for the next 24 hours. Wu objected, insisting the suspects were talking nonsense. He suspected they were high on drugs and that the monster stories were side effects. Investigator Kim cut in. Nothing had shown up on the suspects' drug tests. He said the National Forensic Service had even double-checked the results. Puzzled, Wu watched as the senior leaned in and asked whether he really believed that a number of unrelated people had suddenly seen the exact same thing and then turned themselves in. The senior reminded everyone that higher-ups were pressuring the team to find out what was going on, and that so far they had no solid leads. We need evidence, the senior said. Letting the suspects talk freely, he argued, was the best chance to get it. Wu frowned and voiced his concern about the risk. What if something actually happened while they were letting them speak? The other officers burst into laughter at the idea. One teased, asking if Wu had suddenly started believing in ghosts. Kim added with a smirk that he didn't expect Wu to be so emotional. The senior investigator tried to reassure everyone. He said nothing would happen. They would choose one suspect, take him to a quiet warehouse, and monitor him closely. If the suspect tried to escape, they would stop him. And if the monster actually appeared, they would finally have concrete evidence. The senior finished by asking for a volunteer. If anyone felt uncomfortable, he said, they didn't have to go. Wu answered firmly and without hesitation. He would go as well. The scene shifted to a warehouse. Inside, one of the suspects was panicking, collapsing to his knees and pleading with the investigators. He begged them not to do it to him, crying out that he was going to die. The senior investigator answered with a firm command for the man to sit still. They needed to confirm what was happening. The suspect, however, kept repeating that he was going to die, his terror never subsiding. Growing frustrated, the senior snapped at him, asking how he expected to die when the team was standing right there guarding him. The senior turned to his colleague and asked how much time remained until the 24 hours were up. Investigator Kim checked his watch and reported there were about 10 minutes left. As the minutes ticked away, tension thickened in the warehouse. An unnatural cold seemed to creep through the air. Wu observed everything in silence and thought that something about the place felt wrong. It didn't feel normal. A short while later, Kim announced, "It looks like it's time." The senior looked around cautiously and asked, incredulous, if anything was happening yet. Everyone scanned the warehouse for any sign of an anomaly. The trembling suspect, confused, asked why nothing was happening. The senior glared at him and accused them of staging it. "Did you guys all get high together or something? Don't drag this out. Tell us what really happened." With a shaky voice, the man at last answered. There had been 4 of them at first. They really had seen it that day. Suddenly, Wu felt an overwhelming surge of instinct. His hair rose and his muscles tensed. He shouted for everyone to get back. Without warning, shadows burst up from the concrete. A whip-like shadow lashed out and slammed both the senior investigator and Kim into the wall. They crumpled, unconscious. The suspect, now sobbing and utterly paralyzed by fear, watched in horror as 3 shadowy creatures rose from the floor. Wu's eyes widened in disbelief. Monsters! They had actually appeared, and there were 3 of them. The suspect screamed, begging for help, but the shadows struck with brutal speed. Blood sprayed across the warehouse as his cries were cut off. One of the creatures, an ant-like shadow, wasted no time devouring the man. Frozen in place, Wu watched as the shadow ant turned toward him, raised a limb as if to wave, and then, shockingly, smiled. Stunned, Wu wondered to himself whether the ant had just smiled at him. Even more unnerving, he somehow knew that look meant the creature was pleased to see him. Moments later, the shadow sank back into the ground and vanished. Silence returned to the warehouse. Only a spreading stain of blood marked where the man had stood. Still shaken, Wu whispered, "Why?" He thought to himself that it felt strangely familiar, as if he had faced something like this before. The story moved to the precinct, where the chief erupted in anger as he berated his junior investigators. The suspect who had turned himself in had vanished without a trace, and to make matters worse, they had let themselves be knocked unconscious. Turning his glare on Officer Wu Jinchul, the chief demanded whether Wu remembered anything about what had happened to the suspect. After all, Wu had been the one to call the ambulance. Wu lied without hesitation, telling the chief that when he regained consciousness, his colleagues were already unconscious, and that he had no clear memory of the incident. The chief, frustrated but pragmatic, ordered them to keep quiet about the event since no official report had reached the higher-ups. He gave them a cover story for their injuries. Tell anyone who asks that they had been hurt while investigating a gang from the Guro district and that the injuries were the result of an accident. Both officers nodded and accepted the instruction. Later, inside Criminal Investigation Team 3's office, Wu sat at his computer and dug through the police database. A junior colleague noticed and asked whether he was still looking into the self-surrender cases the chief had explicitly told them to drop. Wu admitted that he was, not on official orders, but out of personal curiosity. As Wu scrolled through the list of recent reports, his colleague reacted in surprise. So many people had turned themselves in, and they'd done it at different police stations. Wu simply nodded and said it all tied back to the same thing, the shadowy figure they'd been hearing about. The junior officer looked closer at the dates and pointed out an odd pattern. The number of self-surrenders had spiked sharply between late February and early March. Wu asked if that meant anything. The junior hesitated, then offered a small, seemingly irrelevant memory. His aunt had once owned a tiny book rental shop, and business always dipped around that time of year because the school term was starting. Wu didn't dismiss the memory. He told the junior it wasn't useless and that he'd keep it in mind. The scene then shifted to a school. Students streamed through the gates as the day began. Among them was the new transfer student, Jin Wu. In the principal's office, the principal briefed teacher Park about the new student's file and a troublesome reputation. As Park reviewed the paperwork, he noted the basics. The boy's father was a firefighter, his mother a housewife, and his grades appeared decent. Then Park read the detail that made him frown. The student had allegedly left home for 2 years after finishing elementary school and had been away during his first year of middle school. The principal asked whether Park could handle someone with that kind of history. Park flashed a confident grin and reminded the principal why they called him the Cobra, assuring him he would straighten the boy out. The story fast-forwarded to the school grounds where all the students had gathered. When a loud voice called for silence, the crowd fell still. Standing among the students was the new transfer, Jinwoo. Park spotted him in the crowd. Though he had been warned about the boy's past, Park was confident he could reform him, and used the dress code to make an example of him when he noticed Jinwoo wearing gloves on campus. Park called out and demanded to know why the student was wearing gloves at school. The moment Jinwoo turned toward him, Park's expression shifted dramatically. A deep, oppressive sensation washed over Park. An almost physical presence of darkness, a sea of shadows radiating from the boy. For a heartbeat, he felt exposed and alarmed. Park turned away, ordered the students to stand straight, and walked off while his thoughts raced. Had he really seen that, or had he imagined it? At Jinwoo's side, Bellian materialized quietly and told him in a low voice that the teacher had been able to see them, the shadows, and too. Jinwoo listened, and the thought crept into his mind that perhaps his influence was beginning to leak into the world around him. The scene shifted to a classroom where students were chatting and settling into their seats. Jin Wu sat quietly with a book when a fellow student walked over and asked whether the quiet boy was Jin Wu. The student introduced himself as Yonggil and explained they had been classmates back in middle school. As Yonggil and Jinwoo talked, a group of other students started to approach. One of the boys told Yonggil to step aside, then the group closed in around Jinwoo. One of the boys tried to intimidate him, taunting that Jinwoo thought himself a big shot. Another boy pointed at Jinwoo's single glove and demanded to know why he was wearing only one, adding that he wanted to try it on. Jinwoo did not reply, which only irritated the group more. One of them pushed further, asking whether he could even hear them and pressing him again to remove the glove. The boys then suggested, nervously and crudely, that he must be hiding a tattoo under the glove. At that moment, Baru reached out telepathically and asked Jinwoo for permission to rip them apart for insulting him. Jinwoo quietly ordered Baru to stand down. He then began to remove the glove, doing so deliberately and without haste. As the glove came off, the bullies' faces twisted into expressions of horror. What they saw was a hand badly burned and scarred. Seeing their reactions, Jinwoo realized this was the one wound on his body he could not heal. An injury inflicted during his battle with Antares, the Monarch of Destruction. He thought to himself and made a pointed remark about whether they had ever seen a burn before. The boys stumbled backward, suddenly nervous and insisting it had all been a joke. They begged him not to take it so seriously. One muttered that he should just put the glove back on because the sight of that hand would haunt his dreams. As the boys tried to hurry away, Baru lunged at them, startling Jinwoo and causing him to wonder what Baru was about to do. Before Baru could reach the group, Jinwoo used his authority to manipulate their shoes, forcing them all to trip and fall to the ground. Other students burst into laughter at the bullies' sudden embarrassment as they scrambled to their feet. Jinwoo allowed himself the smallest smile, thinking that the trick had been done just for fun. Later, as Jinwoo and Yonggil walked together, Yonggil remarked on how much Jinwoo had changed in the 3 years since they last met, noting that Jinwoo had not flinched back there and asking if he had been working out. Jinwoo nodded and said he had trained a lot while he was away. Yonggil then asked whether Jinwoo planned to join any sports clubs. Jinwoo answered with a slight smile that there was one club he was considering. The scene moved to the school grounds where Choi Dae-woong, captain of the track and field team, looked confused when Jinwoo asked to join the club. Glancing at Yonggil, Choi asked if both of them wanted to join, but Jinwoo made it clear he was the only one applying. A few club members sauntered over and mocked the idea, remarking that it was rare to see a new student come all the way to the sports field just to join the team. Ignoring the sarcasm, Choi asked whether Jin Wu was a student athlete or had any track experience from middle school. Jin Wu simply replied that he did not. One of the club members frowned and said the team was made up of trained student athletes. He wondered why someone with no experience would want to join. Jin Wu answered calmly that there was someone he wanted to meet at a tournament. Thinking of Cha Hai-in, Jin Wu recalled she was still in middle school at that time, but he believed she was skilled enough to enter the regional tournament. He remembered that she had once been an excellent track and field athlete before giving up that dream to become a high-ranking hunter, and he hoped that by entering the middle and high school tournament, he might meet her naturally. The other students remained unimpressed, but Choi intervened and offered Jin Wu a conditional chance to join. Choi pointed to another student and explained that the boy was considered the weakest runner among the second years. Choi set the rule: if Jin Wu could beat that student in a race, he could join the team. Jin Wu studied the designated runner. Though the boy looked thin, his strong legs and steady posture suggested he was not truly weak. Jin Wu accepted the challenge. Some club members scoffed, muttering that they did not even recognize the runner who had placed third in last year's regional competition, and they questioned whether Jin Wu could simply walk onto the team. Choi laid out the stakes. If Jin Wu won, he would be in. If he lost, he would be responsible for the team's laundry and cleaning duties for a month. The scene cut inside the school building where a colleague asked Park Ji-sul if he was feeling better. Park replied that he was fine. He just needed a smoke. Later in the break room, Park looked out the window while smoking and noticed Jin Wu running far ahead of the track team. Surprised, Park turned to another teacher and asked why Sung Jin Wu was running with the students and whether he was part of the club. The other teacher explained that Jin Wu was a new freshman who had shown up asking to join the team. They had decided to test his speed, and he had been so good they could not refuse. The teacher added that they were now checking Jin Wu's endurance and that the laps he was running had already reached 20. Park nodded and started to leave, but then froze in shock. His eyes widened as he saw a shadowy aura trailing Jin Wu as he ran, an indistinct darkness following the boy's stride. Park stared, disturbed and questioning whether what he was seeing could be real. Then to his horror, Baru appeared outside the window in his monstrous ant form and let out a sudden, piercing screech. Park Ji-sul screamed and collapsed, fainting on the spot. The teacher beside him panicked and hurried over, asking if Park was all right. Outside the room, Igris turned to Baru and scolded him, saying he had warned him not to do something like that. Baru shrugged and indicated that, well, now they knew this human could truly see them. The scene fast-forwarded to a small restaurant where Wu Jinchul met a colleague over a meal. The colleague pressed Wu about why he was still looking into the self-surrender cases, wondering aloud who would come to a station simply to cause confusion, and more importantly, whether Wu had seen anything unusual that day. Wu tried to brush the question off with a vague denial, but the colleague pressed him again, specifically naming the day the suspect had vanished from the warehouse and asking whether Wu had seen anything then. Wu conceded that he had seen something odd, a creature that, to him, resembled a giant ant. He said he wasn't certain what it had been, only that its appearance had been ant-like. The colleague reacted with shock and asked if Wu was really saying that giant ant monsters had appeared. A passerby who had overheard the conversation approached and asked whether the creature Wu described had a human body and an ant's head. The next day, the camera moved to the school sports ground where the track and field team was out doing laps. Their captain, Choi, told the team that their aim was to dominate the country. Among the runners, Young-gil struggled to keep up. Seeing him panting and falling behind, Jinwoo asked Bellian why he even followed him here if it was going to be so difficult for him. Bellian replies, "Humans are foolish creatures, my liege." To give Young-gil a hand, Jinwoo quietly used one of his abilities on him. Young-gil immediately felt a rush of energy and a strange heat spreading through his body, wondered what was happening, and then exploded into a sprint that left the others behind. From a distance, Park Ji-sul watched the practice. He remembered the night before when, drunk, he had half told Wu Jinchul and another officer about ant monsters before stopping himself and apologizing for being drunk. Wu had stopped him then and asked him to explain more. Back in the present, Park Ji-sul stared at Jinwoo, Jinwoo, noticing the prolonged stare, thinks that Park has been observing him quite openly lately. Bellian appears beside him and suggests that they should just erase Park's memory and remove his powers, but Jinwoo refused for now. They needed to observe Park a little longer. The scene shifted to the school entrance as Wu Jinchul arrived. He thought the strange cases, the criminal who had turned himself in saying he saw monsters, and the student incident that only one teacher had witnessed. He wonders how he's supposed to ask a student about monsters without sounding insane. While he stood there, a shadow skittered across the pavement and startled him. He muttered that there was definitely something odd happening. Inside the classroom, Jinwoo sat quietly and wondered whether Wu had seen the shadow Jinwoo had stationed nearby. Soon Wu entered and spoke briefly with the teacher, explaining it wasn't a serious matter. He simply wanted to ask a few questions to a student named Sung Jinwoo. The class grew tense at the presence of an investigator. One student whispered that an investigator had come and wondered what Jinwoo had done now. Wu and Jinwoo moved to a quieter corner of the school grounds so the conversation could continue privately. Wu apologized for pulling Jinwoo out of class. Jinwoo said it was fine and thought to himself that it had been over a decade since they last met, although telling that to Wu directly would have felt strange. Wu observed Jinwoo closely, noting that the boy's eyes seemed older than his years. Without wasting time, he produced a sketch of the ant-like creature and asked Jinwoo whether it looked familiar. Jinwoo examined the drawing and said he had seen something like it before. Wu was taken aback and pressed for details. He wanted to know what Jinwoo had seen, what the creature was, and who Jinwoo really was. Collecting himself, Wu then explained that he had been working the case for a while and asked Jinwoo to tell him anything he knew about the creature. Jinwoo responded coolly that the drawing looked like a monster from a special effects TV show kids liked, an answer that disappointed Wu. Wu quietly took the notebook back, thanked Jinwoo, and told him he could return to class. He added that he had already cleared the interruption with the teacher. As Wu turned to leave, Jinwoo asked if he could keep the sketch. Baru objected briefly, but Wu conceded and handed the picture over. After Wu left, Igris appeared and asked Jinwoo why he hadn't simply told the truth. Jinwoo replied that forgetfulness was a blessing granted to humans, even if that forgetfulness had been engineered by men using a tool of the gods. Back in the classroom, Jinwoo found himself surrounded by curious female classmates who peppered him with questions about the investigator. Jinwoo deflected, saying Wu was simply an acquaintance who had come with a private matter. The girls then mentioned a rumor going around the boys' side that Jinwoo had a surprisingly muscular build, and they asked whether he worked out. Before Jinwoo could answer, an unseen hand swept the girls aside. A group of students strolled in smirking, mocking Jinwoo about his sudden attention, and joking that even the police were visiting him now. One of them taunted Jinwoo, asking if he intended to call the police if they picked a fight. Before the bully could finish, a strong arm wraps around his neck from behind, pulling him into a chokehold. Captain Choi of the track and field team had arrived with several teammates. Choi glared at the bullies and demanded to know whether they had business with the team's ace. Jinwoo raised an eyebrow and asked what they were doing in his classroom. Choi responded that they had come to stop him from losing his temper and beating up the four troublemakers. Jinwoo told him not to joke. Choi laughed it off and mentioned a welcoming party for new members later that day, asking whether Jinwoo and Yonggil were free after school and urging Jinwoo to attend. As the track team escorted the bullies from the room, Jinwoo asked what they planned to do to them. Choi grinned and answered that the punishment would be a light jog around the track, something he called character building. Later, heading to the newbie party, Choi teased Jinwoo about whether they should give the bullies a little scare while they were at it. Jinwoo smiled, shook his head, and said it wasn't necessary. He thought they had already learned their lesson. As they walked, someone called Jinwoo's name. He turned and saw Wu Jinchul approaching. Wu asked whether they could continue the earlier conversation. Jinwoo agreed, though Choi called out that he was taking Yonggil hostage until Jinwoo returned for the party. Jinwoo laughed, made a quick excuse about keeping the meeting short because his friend was waiting, and followed Wu to a quieter spot. Wu took a deep breath and, with a serious tone that betrayed his emotions, addressed him formally as Hunter Sung Jinwoo, words that made Jinwoo narrow his eyes because he sensed there was weight behind them. The story jumped back a few hours to the moments just after Wu had handed Jinwoo the sketch. At first, Wu thought giving the picture away had been a small, harmless gesture, something trivial he would forget by the next hour. But as he walked away, a nagging unease told him it had been a foolish thing to do. That's when he suddenly heard a voice. "Association chairman, do you trust me?" Startled, Wu spun around, but there was no one in sight. He glanced up the stairs and heard another voice answer. It was his own. "I trust you." In an instant, a torrent of memories crashed into him. Wu collapsed to his knees as fragments of past, present, and future flooded his mind. Through Sung Jinwoo's eyes, he glimpsed a world he had once forgotten. Battles, gates, monsters, hunters, rulers, and monarchs. He remembered having asked Jinwoo whether he had planned to fight all of it alone, and Jinwoo's simple answer, yes, since the memories of a higher being aren't affected by the flow of time. Back in the present, Wu and Jinwoo walked side by side in silence for a moment before Wu asked quietly how long Jinwoo had been fighting in that dimensional crack. Wu reflected that official records listed Jinwoo as missing for 2 years, and he could not reconcile that with the scale of the conflicts Jinwoo had hinted at. Jinwoo answered plainly that he had been fighting for 27 years. Wu reacted with shock and then asked whether Jinwoo regretted any of it. Jinwoo replied that he did not regret it. Even if he had to make the same choice 100 times, he would choose it again. Wu smiled and observed that Jinwoo now seemed to be enjoying life. Jinwoo admitted he was satisfied with how things were, though he noted wryly that he had to keep switching bodies because he no longer aged. The realization hit Wu hard. Jinwoo had effectively gained immortality, eternal youth and power that skirted the divine. Yet he still chose to live quietly among ordinary people. Wu asked whether Jinwoo had any plans for the future, and whether he had ever considered joining their side, the police. He added that recently many criminals they caught had complained that the shadow creatures left them no space to act or even to breathe. Jinwoo chuckled and said that if he joined the police, there would be no work left for anyone else. Wu smirked and told him that in fact, that was exactly the kind of world they had been trying so hard to build. Jinwoo paused to think and told Wu he would consider it. As Jinwoo started to walk away, Wu called after him that he would be waiting for him to join the force. Jinwoo answered that Wu should not wait. He understood the job was full of work, but came with little pay. Time passed. Then late in April, something strange began to occur far from their city. In the desert region of Western America, a tired traveler, sweating under a blazing sun, dialed emergency services. He told the operator he was not lost, but that he wanted to report something he had witnessed. The operator asked whether the situation was urgent and where exactly it was happening so the proper team could be dispatched. The traveler hesitated, searching for words to describe what he saw, and then said there were cracks, many of them, and that something felt like it was about to break. When the operator asked where the cracks were appearing, he answered plainly that they were in the sky, that the sky itself was crumbling. Meanwhile, at Sung Jinwoo's home, Jinwoo and Igris were buried in study when Jinwoo suddenly sensed an unfamiliar presence approaching from another world. The scene shifts to a quiet cafe. Across from Jinwoo sits the vessel of a ruler. He greets Jinwoo respectfully, addressing him as the Shadow Monarch. Jinwoo's eyes narrow as he asks if the recent disturbances on Earth are the doing of the rulers. The vessel shakes his head. He explains that this is not how rulers travel between worlds, and Jinwoo already knows that. Jinwoo presses further, demanding to know who is trying to break into Earth. The ruler's vessel reveals the truth. The intruders are ancient beings, ones who once invaded the ruler's world, only to be driven back by the army of the sky. But now they have set their sights on Earth. Jinwoo questions why they would choose this world. The answer comes cold and sharp. They are a race of giants who consume the life and minerals of living planets. In the ruler's world, they are feared as titans. Their objective is simple: devour Earth. Jinwoo reflects that such beings had never attempted to come here before, until the cup of reincarnation was used. The ruler confirms it. In the erased timeline, these titans had originally been meant to battle the rulers, but now something has shifted. Jinwoo wonders aloud if he himself is the cause. The vessel admits that the rulers believe the titans are chasing after the traces of the immense power now residing within Jinwoo. The rulers have already dispatched the army of the sky toward Earth. But Jin Wu shakes his head. He tells the vessel it's already too late. Even if a gate were created now, it would take years for the army to arrive. By then, Earth would already be destroyed. Resolute, Jin Wu declares that he will handle them himself. The scene shifts to the western desert of America. The U.S. government has sealed off the entire region where the sky is breaking apart. Teams of scientists and experts have been deployed, but none can explain the phenomenon. One veteran researcher, a man who spent 30 years studying atmospheric anomalies, admits to a military officer that he has never seen anything like this. The officer tries to reassure him, saying that if anything comes out of the sky, the military will handle it. But before his words can even settle, tanks and military vehicles suddenly begin to rise into the air. Far in the distance, Jin Wu stands silently, using his ruler's authority to clear the battlefield. His voice cuts through the tension. There's no point in leaving the military here. Against what's coming, their weapons would be useless. Once the ground is cleared, Jin Wu tilts his head back, eyes locked on the sky. He says quietly to himself, the stage is set. He can already sense it, a powerful hunger drawing closer. An enemy that has come to devour this world. With a flick of his hand, Jin Wu summons his twin daggers, Kamish's Wrath and Demon King's Dagger, along with the Shadow Sword. His aura darkens, his intent sharp. He declares that from this point onward, the ones arriving will face not just a monarch, but a monarch who is also a hunter. Meanwhile, the military forces, still floating helplessly in the air, are carried by Jin Wu's authority and gently placed far away from the battlefield. As the soldiers regroup, one officer, his voice trembling, mutters in shock, "What on earth is happening here?" When he lifts his gaze to the horizon, his words catch in his throat. A massive gate has formed in the sky, its sheer size blotting out the heavens. Back at the battlefield, the gate fully opens, and from within, enormous figures begin to emerge. The Titans have arrived. One after another, colossal giants step through, shaking the ground with their descent. And then, their leader appears, a Titan with massive wings, soaring through the air, descending directly toward Jin Wu. Hovering above him, the winged Titan's voice rumbles across the battlefield. It asks if Jin Wu truly intends to face them alone. Jin Wu, standing unfazed, answers with calm defiance. To him, it doesn't look like he's alone. His shadow suddenly spreads, blanketing the entire desert in black. From that abyss, an army begins to rise. Knights clad in armor, towering beasts, assassins, mages, generals, all of them emerging from the darkness. The Shadow Army has returned to stand beside their monarch. As the ground trembles beneath the weight of thousands, Jin Wu raises his blade. His voice resonates with absolute command. Let's begin. The scene cut to the White House. The president sat in his office, tense and troubled by reports of an unexplained phenomenon unfolding in the desert. Reports that cracks had appeared in the sky, and strange, unknown entities were emerging from them. He replayed the facts in his head and wondered whether the situation could be contained. Before he could dwell on it further, Officer Harrison arrived and told him the incident had been contained for now, and that all details would be presented in the briefing room. Inside the briefing room, Harrison played footage captured by reconnaissance drones. The room watched in stunned silence as the video unfolded. Disbelief and panic spread through the attendees. Someone in the room demanded to know what was happening and who the man at the center of the footage was. The president turned to Harrison and asked for answers. Who that man was, where the troops were, and why a civilian seemed to be at the heart of the event. Harrison admitted they were still trying to figure those very things. Back in the desert, Tusk finished charging a massive well of magical energy and released it in a single, devastating blast that streaked into the sky and obliterated everything in its path. Both forces, the Titans and Jin Wu's Shadow Army, surged toward one another. Despite the Titans' size and ferocity, Jin Wu's army proved vastly stronger. Jin Wu ran forward with lethal speed, cutting through colossal Titans with precise, brutal strikes. Mid-run, Jin Wu summoned his Shadow Sword. The blade swelled to enormous size as it gathered dark power. With a raised arm, he unleashed a sweeping, colossal strike. One by one, the attacking Titans began to fall beneath the impact of that attack. A colossal flying titan managed to intercept the sword and smirked at what it called a trivial trick. It glanced down to the battlefield and noticed Jin Wu preparing another assault. Jin Wu's hand began to transform, morphing into a gargantuan shadow claw. He slammed that appendage down with such force that it pinned the titan to the ground while Jinwoo landed beside it, calm amid the settling smoke. From the dust around the pinned titan, a pair of glowing red eyes opened. The titan sneered, marveling aloud at the unexpected talent of such a small planet and taunting Jinwoo about the need for mana to unleash full power. It bragged that titans must shrink themselves to fight at their greatest potential and suggested Jinwoo beg for forgiveness. Before the titan could finish its taunt, a blade flashed across the dust and cut it down. Marshal Bellian had arrived and dispatched the titan with brutal efficiency. Bellian turned toward Jinwoo and reported that he had intervened. He asked if Jinwoo had been conversing with that particular adversary. Jinwoo shook his head and told Bellian that the monsters were far too arrogant and that they would require special attention. He instructed Bellian to take care of them. Bellian acknowledged the order with a nod and charged back into the fray, slicing through titans with ruthless speed as the battle intensified. The scene moved to a meeting room. Everyone watched the battle footage in stunned silence as the screen replayed the desert clash. The president asked whether they had identified the man at the center of the footage. When no answer came, he noted how effortlessly the individual had handled the monsters. It looked like a scene from a movie, not real life. He pushed the intelligence team for a way to identify the man. David Brennan, the intelligence director, admitted that, realistically, there was no straightforward way to identify him. Then Brennan proposed an unconventional route. Consult Madame Norma Selner. The president asked what he meant. Brennan explained that Selner had a long history of producing answers when conventional intelligence failed. She would know, or at least point them toward the truth. The scene shifted to South Korea, where the national track and field tournament preliminaries were underway. Sung Jinwoo stood with his team, taking in the surroundings. Jinwoo's gaze fell on a nearby student nicknamed Iron. Kim Shaol noticed that Jinwoo was watching him. A senior on Kim Shaol's team asked whether he was warming up. Kim Shaol replied that he was, just in his own way. The rival team's captain approached Choi Dae-won and taunted him for putting a first year on the main squad, suggesting Woo Sang-in's absence had left them desperate enough to field a freshman as the ace. Choi answered with quiet confidence, promising the rival captain his jaw would drop when they saw how good the first year truly was. The rival captain scoffed and boasted that his own team had a monstrous newcomer as well. Another attempt to rattle Choi's squad. As Kim Cheol glanced toward Jinwoo, an inexplicable impulse washed over him. Sweat beaded on his brow, and an unsettling compulsion made him want to kneel before a student he had never met. He chastised himself inwardly, trying to dismiss the feeling as ridiculous. But then he suddenly snapped aloud, startling those nearby. Fellow students asked if he was all right. Kim Chel muttered that he was fine and shoved off toward Jinwoo, trying to shake off the strange sensation. Approaching Jinwoo, Kim Cheol glared and demanded that if Jinwoo had something to say, he take it somewhere else. His tone a mixture of anger and confusion. Captain Choi and the rest of Jinwoo's team interjected with teasing warnings, urging Jinwoo not to lose his temper and reminding him to be gracious if he spared the boys' lives. Jinwoo calmed them, assuring everyone that nothing would happen. Later, in a quiet corner, Kim Cheol grabbed Jinwoo by the collar and demanded to know whether Jinwoo thought he was a joke. Jinwoo's shadows watched the exchange with keen interest. Bellian, one of the strongest among the shadows, suggested leaving Kim Cheol's humiliation to him and promised to make sure the boy would never behave that way again. Suddenly, Kim Cheol froze mid-breath. Tears sprang to his eyes and, without understanding why, he collapsed to his knees, trembling and asking himself aloud why he was kneeling. Jinwoo observed the scene coolly. He noted that Kim Cheol was still a normal human, not a member of his shadow army, and judged there was no need for excessive force or spectacle. As Jinwoo began to walk away, Kim Cheol called after him in a stunned, half-pleading voice, wondering if what he'd felt was love. Jinwoo, baffled by the question, dismissed it as nonsense, and then took action to defuse the situation more permanently. Using his authority, Jinwoo altered Kim Cheol's memory. He made Kim Cheol remember that when he had tried to pick a fight, he discovered Jin Wu and his father were acquaintances. Jin Wu also planted a new impulse, that Kim Cheol should let go of his hostility and live more kindly. Before ending the alteration, Jin Wu added a final, weighty thought to Kim Cheol's mind, that he had been among those who fought to protect the world, and that he should take pride in that fact. Then Jinwoo snapped his fingers to seal the change. Kim Cheol slowly came back to himself, disoriented and looking around as if waking from a dream. Over the loudspeaker, an announcement called all runners to the track. The middle school division preliminaries were about to begin. The story moved to the United States, where Intelligence Director David Brennan arrived at Norma Selner's residence and greeted her politely at the door. Selner smiled and invited him inside. As they crossed the threshold, Brennan noticed the warm scent of food lingering in the air and asked if she'd been in the middle of a meal. Selner replied that she wasn't. A guest had arrived shortly before Brennan did. Brennan said he would be brief and got straight to the point so he wouldn't take up more of her time. Calmly, Selner told him that after that previous visitor left, she suddenly found herself unable to see the future anymore. Surprised, Brennan asked if she was referring to the figure Selner had once called the God of Death. Selner ignored the label and assured him she would answer the question he was about to ask. When Brennan asked how she could know what he would ask, Selner explained that he had only repeated questions he'd asked in the past. She had already seen those moments before, and now she was simply giving him the answers. Brennan fell silent as Selner continued. She claimed to know the identity of the man everyone wanted to find, but she refused to reveal anything about him. Frustrated, Brennan pressed why she would withhold the information. He warned that the man might be dangerous and could even pose a threat to the country. Selner answered plainly that precisely because he could be dangerous, she would not disclose his identity. She asked Brennan if he had watched the footage. The memory of the video came back to Brennan, a lone man standing against terrifying monsters without flinching, a figure whose power had protected humanity in an instant. Selner then asked a quieter, unsettling question. Would he believe her if she said this kind of rescue had happened before? Brennan, stunned, asked whether such events had truly occurred in the past. Selner nodded and said there had indeed been times when humanity had teetered on the brink of annihilation without realizing the danger. Brennan wondered whether the mysterious man might be the same being she had once described as the God of Death. Shaken, he moved for the door but paused to ask one final thing. Could Selner guarantee the man in the footage was not a threat? Without hesitation, Selner told him she could guarantee it. Relieved for the moment, Brennan nodded and told himself he would pretend he hadn't heard Selner claim to know the man personally. As he stood to leave, Selner offered him some cookies she had baked. Brennan declined with a small smile and promised he would come by again. After Brennan left, Thomas Andre entered the room. He complained that he didn't like the man in the footage and offered to teach him a lesson. Selner sighed and warned Thomas not to push the issue. He was one incident away from being disqualified as a fighter. Thomas shrugged and asked a question of his own. Selner nodded for him to speak. He wondered aloud about the accident that had spared his life. Many had died, he said, but he had survived thanks to Selner's prophecy. He wanted to know why she had saved him. Selner smiled softly and told him it was because he had done many good deeds in a past life. Thomas blinked, half amazed. Himself, Thomas Andre, the so-called UFC devil, credited with a demonic reputation. From the window he watched Brennan drive away, then asked what it was that had prompted Brennan to come all that way. Selner's eyes drifted as she answered. The man in the video had saved the world. Thomas chuckled, uncertain whether Selner was being earnest or playful. He decided that ambiguity was part of what made her interesting. Finally, Thomas asked what the hero who saved the world was doing now. Selner answered speculatively that perhaps he was simply enjoying his youth somewhere, living quietly for now. A few hours earlier, the atmosphere was electric at the middle school track as preliminaries were about to begin. Young athletes gathered, their faces set with determination, among them Cha Hai-in, focused, calm, and ready for the challenge. At the signal, the race began. Runners surged forward, some struggling halfway through and falling behind. But Cha Hai-in, driven by sheer willpower, pushed ahead and crossed the finish line first. Moments later, away from the cheering crowd, she limped quietly to a shaded spot beneath a tree. She removed her shoe and winced at the sight of her swollen, bruised ankle. Doubt crept in. She had qualified, but could she continue like this? As she sat in silence, a voice broke through her thoughts. Jinwoo appeared, calm and composed. He warned her about the risks of running while injured and shared a story of someone who had ignored such pain, living to regret it. Cha Hai-in studied him, unsure who he really was, a high school athlete. Noticing her discomfort, Jinwoo gently touched her ankle. She flinched but did not pull away. Within seconds, the swelling and pain vanished. Jinwoo smiled and encouraged her to run without regrets, reminding her that moments like these rarely come twice. As he turned to leave, she asked if they had met before. Jinwoo did not answer directly. Instead, he challenged her. If she could ever beat him in a race, even once, he would tell her everything. She pressed him further, recalling how she had seen him take first place in every preliminary race he had entered. Jinwoo told her to give up. She refused, vowing to set a new record in the preliminaries. When she did, he had to reveal the truth. Jinwoo agreed, thinking that she, younger or older, had not changed at all. Time passed. We see Jinwoo at school, spending his days with the track and field team, playing video games and studying diligently. Years later, on Christmas Eve, the city sparkled with lights and laughter. Jinwoo walked alone, his simple outfit feeling slightly underwhelming for the festive night. Passing a clothing store, a mannequin caught his eye. With a thought, dark smoke swirled around him, transforming his outfit to match the mannequin perfectly. From the shadows, Tusk appeared, nodding approvingly. "You look amazing, my liege," he said. Satisfied with his appearance, Jinwoo continued through the bustling streets. Amid the holiday chaos, soft footsteps approached. He turned, seeing Cha Hai-in trying to surprise him, but he had already anticipated her arrival. They talked casually. Jinwoo mentioned that he would be attending university soon. Hai-in raised an eyebrow. "You're going to that university. With your exam scores, you could have gone anywhere." Jinwoo shrugged. "Full scholarship, study abroad, and there's someone I just met there." A flicker of suspicion lit her eyes. "Is it a girl?" she asked. Jinwoo gave no clear answer, amused by her flustered reaction. She grinned and leaned closer. "Do you remember an old promise?" Jinwoo looked puzzled. She reminded him. It was about the race. He had promised that if she ever beat him, he would tell her everything. What he was really thinking, whether there was someone at his university, and if they had met before that first competition. Jinwoo was caught off guard but smiled and agreed. Before he could move, Hai-in stepped closer, wrapped her scarf around his neck and whispered, "If you like me, don't move." She then turned and walked toward a distant tree. Jinwoo stood still, watching. He realized he had already lost, without taking a single step. From the shadows, his soldiers reacted. Some were confused. "There are times even a king can lose like this," one muttered. Others were baffled. How did our king lose so easily? But Jinwoo wasn't listening. His gaze followed Hai-in as she walked, memories of their first meeting flashing through his mind. He smiled. Cha Hai-in reached the tree with a bright, happy smile. Seeing her, Jinwoo knew. It was time to tell her everything. He walked toward her and gave a simple order to his shadows. "Close your eyes." They embraced under the softly falling snow. In that quiet moment, nothing else in the world existed. The scene shifts to the world of repose, a quiet, timeless realm where shadow soldiers slumber, awaiting their king's command. Kaisel greets Tusk warmly, while an orc soldier bows in respect. "Good morning, General," the orc says. Tusk smiles faintly. "I'd say good morning too," he replies, "but there is no day or night in this world within the shadows." As he contemplates the calm surrounding him, Marshal Baru approaches, grinning. With theatrical flair, Baru reveals a gift, a robe crafted to perfectly resemble the hooded jacket worn by their king. Tusk's eyes widen. "How can I possibly repay you?" he asks. Baru waves him off. Tusk dons the robe, marveling at the flawless details and craftsmanship. Baru then makes another suggestion. "The orb you carry should become a staff, a weapon worthy of a general." Without hesitation, Tusk agrees. He summons the finest artisans, the dwarves. One of the dwarves bows respectfully. "We are simply honored to craft something using the sacred weapon our liege entrusted to us," he says. The camera pans to the world of repose, an infinitely vast realm where over 10 million shadow soldiers coexist. Here, every soldier lives in harmony, helping one another. Each shadow evolves alongside their king's growing power, gradually reflecting the mind of their monarch. Once beings of war and destruction, the shadows are beginning to experience life. Emotions like curiosity, friendship, and even joy now bloom among them. Some soldiers rest, some train, others engage in casual conversation. A few even argue heatedly, grabbing each other by the collar. Their once non-existent identities are beginning to take shape. In this diversity, they silently thank their king for bringing them into a world they never imagined. Soon Tusk's staff is completed. He holds it with pride as his subordinates cheer. Suddenly, shadows from the Sky Army approach. Tusk narrows his eyes. "Who are you?" They bow deeply. "We were sent by Grand Marshal Bellian," they report. At the mention of Bellian's name, Tusk straightens, preparing to recount his accomplishments during their king's battle against the Dragon Monarch in the gap between dimensions. But he is interrupted. Irritation flickers in his eyes, until he turns and sees Commander Igris. Caught off guard, Tusk stammers, quickly offering praise and loyalty. Igris simply nods. "Thank you for your loyalty," Igris says calmly. Tusk gathers himself. "Why were you looking for me?" Igris responds evenly. "It's going to begin soon." Tusk turns to the window, eyes drawn to the sky, and stops, stunned. Outside, he sees their king, Jin Wu, standing alongside Shahan. The sight fills him with joy and pride, mirrored by the celebrations of shadows around him. Igris remained still, watching silently. His mind drifted back to the past, to the first time he had met Jinwoo. In a strange, fabricated dimension forged by the power of a monarch. His mission had been clear, to test the human who had entered that space. The previous Shadow Monarch had wanted to know one thing. Was this man worthy of becoming the next vessel of Shadow? Even then, Igris understood the gravity of his task. This was his final command. He could sense it in his liege's quiet farewell, hidden behind carefully chosen words. After forgiving the rulers, the previous king had lost all interest in endless war. The fact that he would still take an interest in a mere human meant there had to be a reason. But Igris did not question it. He never asked why. He simply obeyed, because his liege's orders were absolute. That was all he could do. So he stood alone in that fabricated dimension, prepared to test the human's qualifications, even with most of his original power sealed. He observed the world around him. In this place, people called it a dungeon. He pondered his own form, the appearance he had before meeting his liege. To recreate this exact scene, the architecture, the sensation, could only be the work of the architect, using his liege's power to build a stage so refined. Only this level of intricacy could allow a human body to slowly absorb the power of the Shadow Monarch. As Igris stepped forward and sat upon the throne, unease stirred in his chest. Could Jinwoo already be present? He could sense the human's presence behind the massive doors. Was it presumptuous to sit upon the throne? Did it make him arrogant? He stood, and just then the doors opened. Jinwoo entered, his figure wrapped in darkness. Igris watched silently. "So this is the one my liege chose," he thought. He stepped forward. This was his final mission. It demanded perfection. If Jinwoo proved unworthy, Igris would not hesitate to strike him down. The battle began. At first, Igris felt disappointment. Jinwoo seemed too focused on dodging his sword to fight back. But then he noticed something. Jinwoo was not retreating. He was planning to defeat Igris with his bare hands. Impressive courage for a human, Igris thought. He liked Jinwoo's eyes, but did he have the strength to back them up? Igris charged. His blow landed, and Jinwoo crashed into the wall. Disappointing, Igris thought. How could this weak being be worthy of becoming the vessel of my liege? He decided. This ends now. Raising his sword for the final strike, he struck, but Jinwoo caught the blade with his bare hand. Igris froze. He was not shocked that Jinwoo had stopped the blade. He was stunned that Jinwoo had not given up. Even at the very end, facing certain death, he refused to surrender. Could he really be defeated by a human so much weaker than him? Then he saw it. In Jinwoo's gaze, even if just for a fleeting moment, there was a familiar flicker, a trace of his liege's will. Igris should have won. His stats were far superior, yet he lost. Was it carelessness or a miracle born from unyielding will? That moment transformed impossibility into victory. For the first time, Igris felt something unexpected. Relief, perhaps even pride. He wasn't sure if he was supposed to feel happy, but he did, because his liege's choice had been right. Over time, Jinwoo cherished Igris. Quiet, meaningful moments passed between them, strengthening their bond. To Igris, Jinwoo was not just a master, but a friend and comrade. They fought countless battles side by side. As Igris's loyalty deepened, he realized something. His longing for his previous liege had begun to fade. Over time, he fully accepted his new king. Then came the revival of the original Shadow Legion, the true army that had awaited the return of their sovereign. Among them stood Bellian, an old comrade of Igris. But the joy of reunion quickly devolved into chaos. Bellian, once stoic and composed, began showing signs of being influenced by his overly energetic and passionate roommate, Baru. When Bellian suggested placing a massive black flag atop the castle to honor their liege, Baru eagerly supported the idea. "It must be for our king," he asked. Later, Jinwoo, puzzled, asked, "Why did you even put that flag there?" The situation quickly devolved into playful bickering between the towering Grand Marshal and the overexcited Baru. But soon war returned. The battle against the Monarchs began in earnest. With each clash, their liege, Sung Jinwoo, grew stronger, and with him, so did the Shadow Soldiers. Even after time was reversed using the Cup of Reincarnation, the war persisted. Nearly 30 years passed. Eventually, all enemies were annihilated, except the Legion of Destruction. When that final battle ended, victory was theirs. During the fight, a dying dragon hissed at Igris. "You were once a wing of the Shadow Army, and yet you follow a monarch who was once merely human. Have you no shame?" Igris struck the dragon down, but the words lingered. Had he forgotten his old master? The thought haunted him briefly, but then he remembered. The time he had spent with Jinwoo had been so honorable, so fulfilling, that the past had simply faded. He wondered, when had his former liege stopped appearing in his thoughts? The scene shifted outside Jinwoo's school, where he met Wu Jinshul briefly before they parted ways. After the encounter, Igris turned to his king and asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell him the truth?" Jinwoo replied calmly, "Forgetfulness is a blessing the gods granted to humans, even if that forgetfulness was crafted by men using a tool of the gods." Hearing this, Igris nodded. Yes, his king was right. There was no need to dwell too deeply on what had been forgotten, and yet Igris hadn't truly forgotten his previous monarch. Unlike Greed and Iron, who had left the battlefield behind to lead peaceful lives in the New World, Igris had stayed. He had chosen this path. His loyalty now flowed entirely to Sung Jinwoo. He was a knight, the sword of his liege, one of the wings of the Shadow Army. But now Jinwoo faced a new kind of enemy: exams. Igris stood by patiently as his king worked through a mock test. "Your score is nearly perfect," he observed. "However, the answer to question 14 is 1, not 2. Jinwoo thanked him and quickly corrected the answer. Watching this, Igris thought to himself, "Who else would assist my liege if not I?" The Grand Marshal, he's as big as a mountain. Commander Baru, intelligent in his own way, but also very insect-like. Igris sighed. "This is why it falls to me. I graduated top of my class at the Knight Academy, after all." As Jinwoo double-checked his answers, he asked casually, "Did you risk your life for answer 2? Igris quickly flipped through the exam guide. "Ah, it seems my discipline is still lacking. I shall strive harder, my liege." To Igris, his king's battlefield, whether war or school, was his battlefield too. As long as his liege kept fighting, he would never leave his side. The scene then shifted to Jinwoo's father, reflecting on a strange phenomenon. The gates, massive portals that summon monsters from other worlds. He remembered the first time he had been trapped. Once a dungeon boss is defeated, one must escape the gate within an hour. But he had failed and was trapped inside the rift between dimensions. While he was in that state, the rulers contacted him, entrusting him with their power to stop the monarchs. Later, the greatest fragment of brilliant light gave him a new order: to protect the Shadow Monarch. That was why Jin Wu's father had stood by his son's side during the battles against the monarchs. He apologized for all the years Jin Wu had suffered alone. A quiet moment passed before Jin Wu spoke softly. "I missed you." His father looked at him, tears welling in his eyes. Holding back his emotions, he confessed that he had never wanted to leave. Standing tall, he told Jin Wu how proud he was of the man he had become. Even though their time together was short, he wished for just a little longer and apologized for not being the father he should have been. The scene shifted to a modest apartment building. Inside, Jin Wu's mother and sister were gathered around the table. A younger Jin Wu ran over, calling out, "Dad!" Surprised, his father repeated the word softly to himself, almost in disbelief. Seeing his family reunited, Jin Wu was overwhelmed. Silent tears streamed down his face. His mother and father looked on, concerned. Jin Wu reassured them quietly. "I just had a nightmare." His father, watching his son, suddenly began to cry, touched beyond words, remembering the forgotten world they had endured. Time passed. Later, Jin Wu's father, Sung Il-hwan, sat in a quiet cafe, speaking with one of the ruler's vessels. He asked carefully about his son's choice. The ruler explained, "The Shadow Monarch has chosen to remain in this world. Every moment, every second, matters to him now." Then the ruler asked, "Do you plan to erase your memories of him?" Il-hwan nodded. Jinwoo didn't want anyone remembering the vanished timeline. The ruler smiled. "Like father, like son," he said softly. He continued, explaining that their role in this world would end once Il-hwan departed. "After you leave," he said, "there will be no more interference from the rulers. I have enjoyed watching how everything unfolded. It has been exciting." As a final gesture, the ruler addressed him. "The rulers wish to express their gratitude, not just to the Shadow Monarch, but to you as well, Sung Il-hwan. Is there anything we can do for you?" Without hesitation, Il-hwan made his request. "Please, erase my memories of the past." Surprised, the ruler asked why. Il-hwan explained, "It's difficult pretending I don't know. Jinwoo sees through everything. I just want to be a normal father, someone who worries about his son, not the Shadow Monarch. To me, he's my precious son." The ruler understood and nodded. "As soon as you walk out that cafe door, all memories of the vanished timeline will be erased." Rising, the ruler walked toward the exit and added gently, "You may not remember this, but I pray for your peaceful future." Time shifted to a lively cafe, buzzing with young voices celebrating a university welcome party. Sitting quietly in a corner was Jinho, visibly nervous. It was his first time attending such an event, and the excitement was overwhelming. He reflected on his upbringing, coming from a well-off family, used to comfort. But something about this modest restaurant, known for its frozen pork belly, sparked a strange sense of familiarity. Before he could dwell on it further, a friendly upperclassman nudged him, encouraging him to loosen up and join the fun. The senior joked, "You can lighten up around me, but watch out for the seniors. There's one guy in our major who's seriously scary. He doesn't boss anyone around, but the charisma he gives off is insane." Jinho, only half listening, thought to himself, "No matter how intimidating this guy is, he can't be scarier than my old man." The conversation shifted. The senior asked, "Hey, what's the name of that rising idol athlete everyone's talking about again?" "Cha Hye-in," Jinho replied, curious. His friend grinned. "Yeah, that guy over there. She's his girlfriend." Noticing no one was approaching their table, the senior stood to charm a group of juniors. But just then, Jinwoo unexpectedly took a seat beside them. Both Jinho and the senior froze. Flustered, the senior quickly excused himself to handle the other juniors, leaving Jinho alone with Jinwoo. Jinwoo slid a drink toward him. Jinho hesitated, staring at the full glass, surprised. He wasn't good with alcohol, but saying no didn't feel like an option. As he took a sip, he paused, confused. "Wait, this isn't alcohol," Jinwoo replied casually. "You can't even handle your drink. What are you worried about?" He refilled Jinho's glass and added, "And stop calling me Sunbai. Call me Young from now on." Jinho stammered, unsure how to respond. Jinwoo raised an eyebrow. You don't want to? Panicking, Jinho blurted out, No, that's not it, Hyung-nim. Oddly, he wondered why saying that felt so familiar, and how Jinwoo even knew his name. Jinwoo lifted his glass for a toast. Jinho, smiling, clinked his glass without hesitation. Time moved forward. Sung Jinwoo was walking briskly across campus while speaking on the phone. On the other end, Jinho sounded annoyed. Why'd you skip out on the department lounge gathering today? Jinwoo replied casually, I had something to do. Can you cover for me at the afternoon lecture? Jinho protested, Why me? You're the one all the professors like. Just, where are you anyway? Jinwoo answered, I'm on a field trip to the university hospital. That caught Jinho off guard. What are you doing there? That has nothing to do with our major. Jinwoo didn't answer and ended the call with a simple, I'm counting on you. Meanwhile, Lee Ju-hee walked through campus, deep in thought. She muttered to herself, I made it into a university in Seoul, but is my Busan accent too strong? She sighed. It's already hard enough trying to speak standard Korean. And why does the nursing department use so much English? As she walked, Jinwoo passed by her. Something about him caught her eye. She stops suddenly and calls out, Have we met before? Jinwoo paused and offered a faint smile. I don't think so, he said gently, then continued on his way. Ju-hee watched him walk off, confused. Why did I suddenly talk to a stranger I don't even know? She wondered before continuing on her path. The scene transitioned to the university hospital. Inside, a doctor made his way toward a private patient room. When he arrived, he requested permission from the security team to enter. They nodded and he stepped inside. The moment he saw the man in the bed, he froze. It was Go Gun-hee, the former chairman. The patient stirred, trying to sit up. Help me, would you? He asked. The doctor rushed to assist him and noticed a strange bottle on the table. What's this, Chairman? The doctor asked. Chairman Go replied, A young man came by earlier and gave it to me. The doctor was puzzled, but security maintained a tight watch over the room. Go Gun-hee continued, smiling faintly. Yes, and yet he managed to leave this here without anyone noticing. But what he told me was even more unbelievable. He explained that the young man had claimed that in a now-erased timeline, the two of them had fought monsters side by side, and this bottle was a parting gift, a thank you for the past. Then just like that, the man disappeared, like a mirage, as if he had never been there at all. Chairman Go continued, He told me that if I drink this, my illness will be cured. The doctor looked skeptical. Do you really believe that? Go Gun-hee sighed. I'm tired. Who cares if it's fake? He gripped the bottle tightly. If I don't drink this, how long do I have left? The doctor didn't answer. The chairman smiled faintly. If anything happens after I drink it, carve this on my gravestone. He fought his disease with all his strength, and now he rests here. He opened the bottle and drank every drop. Laying back, he closed his eyes and whispered softly, I should rest a bit. The doctor nodded and headed out. Call me if anything unusual happens, he said. The chairman lies in silence. Time passes. Sunlight slowly creeps into the room. As the warm rays touch his face, Go Gun-hee stirs awake. He opens his eyes. His illness. Gone. He breathes deeply and gazes out the window. With a soft smile, he murmurs, Looks like the sunlight is still too warm for winter to come. Far away in the shadows of reality, a being reflects on a past steeped in power and fear. His name is Antares. He is the first monarch, born in darkness, and the strongest of them all. He is the king who rules over all dragons, a being that embodies fear and destruction. To those who know of him, he is called the Dragon Emperor. But on an ordinary day, hidden within a dimensional rift with millions of soldiers preparing to invade Earth, he awoke, not as a dragon, but in a human body. Staring into the mirror, Antares studies the weak-looking face before him. It disgusts him. So pitiful, he thinks. Digging through the host's memories, he uncovers the human's identity. His name is Jin Wu, an E-rank hunter from a country known as South Korea. Despite his weakness, this human constantly risked his life, refusing to give up. The reason? His mother's illness. Antares walks into the room, still deep in thought. A disease like that. Something his power could erase in an instant. Then a sound interrupts him. His phone rings. He answers. A woman's voice yells from the other end, demanding to know why he hasn't shown up for the raid. It's almost time. Antares freezes. She's implying, I'm late. Is she suggesting that he, the incarnation of absolute power, is doing something as low as being incompetent? Unacceptable. With cold precision, he asks for her location. She yells again, saying she's at the front of the gate, and demands to know why he's talking so weird. Antares ignores the question. Instead, he activates his power, using her voice to trace her position. The city unfolds before him. He finds her. Cut to the woman, still confused. What do you mean, found me? She asks. Then the call cuts off. Suddenly, she hears a voice behind her. I'm late. Do you still think? I'm late. She flinches. Antares stands just behind her, placing a hand on her shoulder. His voice is low, menacing. She stammers out a no, her body trembling. Nearby, a man hands Hunter Kim a coffee. Kim thanks him, then notices Jin Wu approaching. Kim greets Jin Wu casually. Antares doesn't answer. Instead, he wonders, is this man supposed to be one of my subordinates? Without a word, he strides to the canteen and asks for coffee. The man apologizes. There's none left. Without hesitation, Antares grabs the cup from the man's hand and drinks it. Saying the strong taking what the weak have, that's common sense for us monarchs. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Something feels off. Hunter Park whispers, he's been giving me seriously creepy vibes since he showed up. Just then, a voice calls out, you're injured again. It's Hunter J. He, pointing out cuts and bruises on his face. Antares glances at her, quietly irritated. Why are these humans so noisy, he wonders. Scene shifts to the gate. Hunter Song steps forward and claps his hands to get everyone's attention. Let's focus. I'll be leading this raid. Anyone object? Everyone nods. He's the highest-ranking hunter present. No one argues. In the back, Jinwoo watches everything unfold in silence. He says nothing, but a warning echoes in his mind. Something about this place feels suspicious. Then a voice announces, it's time. Let's all enter the dungeon now. Standing before the gate, Antares narrows his eyes. This gate, it reeks of the ruler's tricks. But why do I sense the energy of a monarch coming from it? Curious, he decides to investigate it himself. I'll be joining this raid, he tells Hunter Song. Song smirks casually. Of course you are. Hearing that, Hunter Kim turns to Jinwoo. Just make sure you stay behind us so you don't get hurt, all right? Antares nods approvingly, thinking, a loyal subordinate concerned for his liege's health despite his own weakness. Without hesitation, Antares strides into the gate. Inside the dungeon, the atmosphere shifts. The air is thick with darkness. Antares' eyes gleam, but with excitement. In an instant, he rips through demonic beasts, tearing them apart with terrifying ease. The other hunters trail behind, stunned. Is he okay today? Hunter Kim whispers. Are the monsters just weak, or is he different? Hunter Song frowns. I can't even follow Jinwoo's movements. They're too fast. Suddenly, Antares calls back, voice cold and commanding. Why are you all dawdling? We're heading this way. Song raises a hand, trying to interject. Hold on, we should take a vote before. But before he can finish, Antares appears in a blur and knocks him out cold. Silence. The hunters stare in shock as their strongest member collapses. Then Antares turns to the rest, his voice calm but chilling. Anyone else want to vote? No one speaks. Good, he says, walking forward. Looks like we're all in agreement. They press deeper into the dungeon, the tension thickening with every step. Someone whispers, it's been 40 minutes. If we beat the boss now, the gate will close in an hour. That gives us 20 minutes to escape. Finally, they arrive at a colossal set of doors, massive and ancient, the entrance to a double dungeon. Nervous glances pass between the hunters. As they hesitate, Antares steps forward. Even they can sense the danger, he thinks, and they're right. I feel immense power behind these doors. With a steady hand, he pushes them open. As the massive doors creak, Antares suddenly grabs one of the hunters by the collar and hurls him into the chamber, catching the rest completely off guard. "Why'd you do that?" the hunter shouts in confusion. Antares replies casually, "Nothing happened. That means it's safe. We're heading inside." The group hesitantly follows him in, only to find themselves in a vast stone hall filled with towering statues. At the center, a monstrous figure sits on a massive throne. One of them wonders aloud, "Could this be the dungeon boss?" Antares points toward a winged statue holding a stone tablet glowing with arcane symbols. "Anyone here know what this says?" No one answers. In a bored tone, he recites the ancient inscription, "The Commandments of the Kartanon Temple." Jahi nervously grabs his arm, pointing at the central statue, clearly alarmed. Before she can speak, Antares cuts her off coldly. "Unhand me." Then, finishing the inscription, he declares, "Those who break these laws shall never leave here alive." At that moment, the statue's eyes glow, and a destructive beam fires from them, catching the hunters completely off guard. Antares grins. "You dare challenge me with such pitiful might?" But the blast crashes into him, engulfing his body in a violent explosion. The entire chamber shakes under the impact. The hunters panic, scrambling for cover. The attack doesn't let up. Then, without warning, Antares retaliates. A massive wave of destructive breath surges from him, tearing through the statue's magic like paper. In one sweeping motion, the mighty statue is obliterated. Everyone stares in disbelief. Antares stands tall, declaring, "Now that is real power." But it's not over. The stone soldiers lining the hall begin to move. One by one, they spring to life and charge the hunters with terrifying speed. Antares, now fully exhilarated, launches into battle. "Come at me, you arrogant puppets!" In a whirlwind of force, he sends the statues flying, shattering them left and right. Debris scatters across the hall. The other hunters retreat in chaos, trying to escape the carnage, while Antares stands atop a pile of broken enemies. This was barely a warm-up. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the hall. The architect, the dungeon's creator, materializes, furious. "My life's work reduced to rubble. Who are you?" Before the figure can finish, Antares hurls a glowing spear through him. The architect vanishes in an instant, annihilated in a single blow. "I didn't come for chatter," Antares says coldly. "Enough with illusions. Show yourself." Black energy begins seeping from the central statue. A chilling voice fills the chamber. "So we meet at last, Monarch of Destruction. Fate has brought us here." The statue crumbles, revealing a fearsome entity cloaked in shadows. "Let's end this, once and for all." Antares doesn't flinch. "Fine by me." With a mighty leap, he surges toward the figure. "Let's see what you're made of." As their collision nears, Antares grins. This won't end quickly, but just before they clash, Jinwoo awakens in his room, drenched in sweat. He blinks, eyes darting around, disoriented. What was that? Just a dream. The scene shifts to a police station, where a young recruit, Lee Se-han, reflects on a rumor that haunted the halls since his first day. A legend whispered among officers in the Violent Crimes Division. They called him the Phantom among investigators, known for cracking every case he touched, including cold cases long thought unsolvable. His arrest rate was so high, it sounded like fiction, 200%. Criminals who encountered him were said to become meek and compliant, as if staring down death itself. His name became lore in every nearby precinct. There was even a story that he turned down promotions just to stay in the field. Who in their right mind would refuse a promotion? The recruit wondered. Lost in thought, he's approached by an officer. "You must be the new recruit starting today," the man says casually. Investigator Lee Se-han, fresh to the department, but already carrying the weight of expectations. Sensing Lee's nerves, the senior officer smiles and offers him a cup of coffee. "No need to be stiff. We're like family here," he says. Lee nods and explains he just met with the squad captain, who assigned him to partner with someone named Investigator Sung. At the mention of the name, the officer's expression shifts. "You mean the Phantom?" Lee freezes. He didn't expect that name to be real. The officer chuckles. They call him that because he appears and vanishes like a ghost. At first, it was just a nickname around here, but other precincts started using it too. Have you heard of him? The man asks, then glances down at the coffee in Lee's hand. That was actually meant for him. As they speak, the air in the room shifts. Then in walks a quiet, composed figure with a commanding presence. Lee instantly knows. This man was the Phantom. The senior officer quickly introduces Lee as the new recruit. The Phantom gives a small nod. The officer pats Lee on the back. I'll leave him to you. Train him well. Still reeling, Lee trails behind, nervously wondering, was he upset about the coffee? Breaking the silence, Jinwoo suddenly asks, why did you join the force? Lee answers without hesitation, to catch the bad guys. A faint smile crosses Jinwoo's face. Then that's exactly what we'll do. As they leave the building together, Lee's heart races. He still couldn't believe it. He was about to learn how to hunt down criminals from the Phantom himself. Several days later, Investigator Lee looked completely drained. Seeing his state, a nearby officer asked what had happened to him. Another replied with a chuckle, he's been chasing down small-time crooks all day with Investigator Sung. Standing nearby, Jinwoo smiled to himself. He recalled something Lee had once claimed, that he'd taken down an armed robber with his bare hands. It made training him a little more entertaining than usual. As Jinwoo focused on another case file, a voice suddenly echoed from across the room. A woman was raising her voice, pleading with an officer. She would never take her own life. She cried. The investigator calmly tried to reason with her, explaining that all the evidence pointed toward suicide. But the woman wasn't having it. She thrust her phone forward. Look at her messages. Does this look like someone planning to die in 3 hours? The officer replied. Most suicides aren't planned. They happen in the heat of the moment. Their argument was cut short by Jinwoo stepping in. Mind if I take a look at the file? He asked. Flipping through the report, he read aloud. The woman was found in her bathtub, having bled out from a deep cut on her wrist. The knife used was discovered inside the tub, and the only prints on it were her own. Despite appearing cheerful, she had been diagnosed with depression. After reviewing the details, Jinwoo looked up. I don't see anything unusual here, but I'll take the case, just to be sure. He then turned to the woman and introduced himself. There are a few things I need to ask. Please come with me. The story fast-forwards to an apartment building under gray skies. Inside, moments pass in silence until a shadow forms in the dim light. Jinwoo steps into the room. He inspects the space, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. Nothing immediately stands out. Bloodstains mark the edges of the tub. Staring at them, he thinks to himself, I used to need the body to do this, but now, he raises a hand. Shadow magic coils through the air. From the blood, a form begins to materialize. A girl, her outline trembling, appears in the room. Startled, she gasps, looking around in fear. Don't be afraid, Jinwoo says gently. You're free now. From pain, from death. He asks the question, did you take your own life? By choice. She lowers her head. Yes, she whispers. What made you do it? Jinwoo asks softly. She begins to tell her story. Later, elsewhere, a man hears his doorbell. He checks the camera and sees an investigator holding out his badge. I'm with the police, Jinwoo says. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your daughter. The man opens the door in a hurry. Did you find something? What happened to her? Not yet, Jinwoo replies. But I need to ask you a few things. Will you come with me? The father nods solemnly. If there's any chance of learning the truth, I'll help in any way I can. The scene shifts to a cafe. Across the table, Jinwoo sits calmly. He begins, what kind of student was your daughter? The man stiffens at the question. Jinwoo presses gently. Was there anyone who might have held a grudge against her? The man quickly shakes his head. Absolutely not. She was a kind and gentle girl. The sort of girl no one could hate. His voice cracks. I still can't believe she's gone. Jinwoo nods, his voice steady. You must have cared deeply for her. Yes, the man replies. She wasn't my biological child, but I loved her as if she were my own. If only she had told me. If she had just said something. Jinwoo reaches into his folder. During the investigation, we came across a sound file among her belongings. I'd like you to listen. He plays the audio. As the recording begins, the man's demeanor begins to shift. The voice in the recording is Jin Yi's, young and fragile, describing the torment she endured for years at the hands of her adoptive father. Though she had escaped to a faraway place, the moment he reached out to her again, she lost all hope. That was when she made the decision to end her own life. The man stares at Jinwoo, now defensive. What's the point of playing this? If you're here to arrest me, then why not just bring backup and slap on the cuffs? Jinwoo looks at him, expression unreadable. You have two options. Option 1, confess everything and come with me to the station. The man scoffs. In the second, pay the price, Jinwoo replies. The man smirks, misreading the situation. How much are you asking? Jinwoo pauses, then answers coolly, that will be enough. A chilling shift takes over the room. His voice drops low. Listen carefully. This place isn't the world you came from. This is a space I created, an imitation of the world outside. But it exists elsewhere. This is the realm of the dead. No living soul can enter without the master's permission. He stares directly into the man's eyes. And now it's your prison. The man blinks in disbelief. What are you saying? Think carefully, Jinwoo says. Can you even remember how you got here? Panic starts to spread across the man's face. The cafe is brightly lit, but completely empty. He stares at Jinwoo, his voice rising. Who are you? What is this? Some kind of nightmare. He bolts for the exit, but shadows rise from the floor, swarming him like a tidal wave. He screams, thrashes, but it's useless. Blood splatters across the walls. Eventually his screams fade. Behind Jinwoo, a faint shadow appears. It's Jin Yi, her voice soft and clear. Thank you for everything. Jinwoo turns to her. Is there anything else you'd like to say? She hesitates. By any chance, if it's not too much trouble, can I ask you a favor? Back at the police station, Jinwoo hands a small package to the friend who had believed in Jin Yi to the very end. She left this behind, he says. The name on the note was yours. I thought she'd want you to have it, he adds gently. From what we can tell, the chance of foul play is very low. The case will be closing soon. The girl looks down. So you're sure it was really suicide? Jinwoo gives a faint nod. Opening the gift, her eyes fill with tears. She whispers, thank you. As Jinwoo walks away, a thought lingers in his mind. 1 hour before she ended her life. If only that insidious message from her adoptive father hadn't reached her phone. Would those two friends have enjoyed a birthday party, just as they planned? The scene shifts to a restaurant. Sitting across the table, Jinho looks unusually serious. With a deep breath, he tells Jiwoo that he's made up his mind. This time, he's going to propose to Jinho, no matter what. Jiwoo stares at him, a bit taken aback. He struggles to find the right words, unsure how to even respond. Before he can speak, Jinho pulls out a luxurious diamond ring from his pocket and eagerly asks if Jinho would like it. Jiwoo examines the ring and replies honestly, he's not exactly an expert in that department. Jinho just laughs it off and says it's okay. He didn't know what she'd like either, so he came prepared with plenty of gifts. He then mentions a new building project on company land. Once Jinho finishes her medical studies, he plans to build a hospital just for her. Jiwoo pauses, then asks if that building is estimated to cost around 30 billion won. Jinho's eyes widen in shock. How did you know that? He asks. Jiwoo recalls a conversation from his previous timeline, one where Chief-un told him about this very hospital. Thinking quickly, Jiwoo tells Jinho he doesn't need grand gestures. He's a good man, he just needs to be himself. Moved by the words, Jinho asks if he can give him a hug. Jiwoo tries to stop him, but Jinho lunges forward anyway. Later that night, Jiwoo arrives home. As he enters, he's greeted by the sight of his wife, Cha-hai-in, and their newborn son still awake. Cha teasingly asks why he went drinking, especially since alcohol doesn't affect him. Jiwoo explains he met Jinho, who had something important to say. Cha asks if he finally decided to propose. Jiwoo smiles and says, we'll see if he gathers the courage. He notices their baby, Suho, is still lively. Cha says it's because he slept too much during the day. Suddenly, Jinwoo notices strange movements from his shadows. Bellian insists the young master must be trained in swordsmanship, while Igris argues that academics should come first. Jiwoo sighs, telling them to wait until Suho at least learns to walk. Cha, a bit sarcastically, suggests maybe Jin Wu should come home early so he can witness that moment. The next day at the police station, Jin Wu enters the police chief's office and asks, "Did you call for me, chief?" Wu Jin-chul reminds him not to interfere with other investigators' cases too much. He calls Jin Wu Hunter, but Jin Wu reminds him he's no longer one. Still, Wu says the title just feels more natural. He explains that the guardian of a recent suicide victim has gone missing, and oddly, all nearby security footage was lost. Jin Wu feigns ignorance. "I don't know much about that. Maybe it's just a coincidence." Then Wu hands Jin Wu a card. Jin Wu looks confused. Wu explains, "The card contains information on Chairman Go Gun-hee." With a heavy heart, Wu informs Jin Wu that the chairman is in critical condition. Later at the hospital, the chairman lies silently in bed. Jin Wu visits him. Go Gun-hee weakly gestures toward his oxygen mask. Jin Wu removes it. With a soft voice, the chairman expresses how happy he is to see Jin Wu again. He says he searched for Jin Wu for so long. Jin Wu offers a potion to heal him, but the chairman gently declines. He says he's lived long enough. His final request is to see the past world Jin Wu once told him about. He wants to remember the world and what happened there. Jin Wu hesitates, saying, "These memories might not be pleasant for you to recall." But the chairman replies, "I just want to recover my lost memories." Seeing his determination, Jin Wu reaches out to fulfill his wish. As Jin Wu grabs the chairman's hand, memories flood back into the old man's mind. He recalls meeting Jin Wu, their time working together, the Jin Wu saving hunters there. The memories rush in. He remembers tense diplomatic moments, his role as a fragment of brilliant light. He remembers dying at the hands of the Monarch of Frost and asking Jiwoo to protect humanity. Tears welling in his eyes, he thanks Jinwoo. "It was an honor to fight alongside heroes like you." In his final moments, Go Gun-hee thinks, "Even if my body turns cold in this warm sunlight, these glorious memories will remain with me and keep me warm forever." He closes his eyes. Jin Wu, watching in silence, feels a deep peace. He bows his head and says goodbye to a man who gave everything for humanity. A true hero until the very end. Fast forward, Jin Wu is quietly walking away, deep in thought. Suddenly his phone rings. On the other end, he hears his wife's voice, urgent and slightly frantic. Cha Hyen, clearly stressed, says, "Something's going on with our son." Alarmed, Jin Wu immediately asks, "What's happening?" Her response, "Suho is flying around the house right now." In the background, Cha scrambles to catch him, while Bellian and Igris stand cheering the boy on. Jin Wu blinks, trying to process what he just heard. "Flying," he repeats in disbelief. That's when he remembers something Jinho once joked about. "A kid from you and your wife? He'll probably be sprinting around the second he's born." Still trying to contain the situation, Cha asks, "What do I do?" Jinwoo reassures her, "It's fine. I'll teach him how to fly properly, step by step." She pauses. "You know how to fly too." The story shifts back to the hospital where doctors solemnly deliver news to Chairman Go Gun-hee's wife. Meanwhile, still on the call, Jinwoo reflects. When autumn comes, winter follows. Then spring greets the world. Everything has a beginning and an end, and a new beginning follows after the end. Hearing Cha trying to calm herself, Jinwoo gently tells her, "I'll be home early tonight." He thinks to himself, "It seems the winter for our house is still yet to come." Back at the Jinwoo household, Igris and Bellian are arguing again. Bellian insists the young master must begin aerial combat lessons immediately. Igris disagrees, claiming this only confirms Suho is destined to become a pilot in the future. Meanwhile, Cha is on the floor cleaning, exhausted, hoping her husband comes home soon, as Suho continues flying around the house. The scene shifts to a time long before, on the chaotic battleground of Jeju Island. Among the swarming, bloodthirsty ants, an ominous figure silently observes. The creatures are locked in brutal combat, devour one another. "As no food remains," murmurs the watcher, none other than the queen of the insects. Her gaze lands on a singular, unique egg. Unlike the others, this one carries the potential to change the tide. "For the sake of the colony," she whispers, "you must become the spear that strikes fear into all who stand against us. Lead them as their strongest warrior. We jump forward in time. The monstrous ant, Baru, returns to the insect hive. There are no kings outside, he declares coldly. Staring down the humans cowering inside, he asks, "Are there any here who claim to be king?" That's when he notices Jin Wu. The Shadow Monarch stands still, slightly taken aback, not by fear but curiosity. It was the first time, Beru recalls, that he had met a human who did not cower before him. With a faint grin, Jinwoo remarks, "Now you're finally acting like an insect." That memory lingers even now. As Beru thinks back, he recalls how rare it was to meet someone who didn't afraid at the sight of him. Now Suho stares at him the same way, with calm eyes, unshaken. This confused Beru, who turns and begins to walk away. But just as he takes flight, he hears the boy calling out from behind. Beru ignores him at first, but Suho doesn't give up. He chases after him. Perplexed by this persistence, Beru wonders, why does the young lord always follow me around? That's when Igris appears beside him, calmly stating, "Of course the young lord is interested." Beru doesn't quite get it. Igris chuckles and explains, "You're a towering ant, bigger than any man. You can fly, you can talk." What child wouldn't be fascinated? Understanding dawns on Beru. So that's why he follows me. Because I'm big, I can talk, and I can fly. From there, the story transitions to the Shadow Realm. Marshal Beru arrives among the dwarves, who are busy working on something grand. "I want to make a slight revision to the plan," Beru says. The dwarves grow anxious. But the designs for His Majesty's holy statue have been finalized for months. It's all for his 32nd birthday. Beru raises a clawed hand to calm them. "I'm not scrapping it, just making a few changes." He carefully outlines his new idea. After listening, the dwarves brighten up, nodding with excitement. Of course, with this change, the final result might be even more magnificent. As Beru prepares to leave, one dwarf steps forward. "We'll need more hands for this. Can we summon the demons from the demon castle to help?" Beru gives a nod. "Do what you must. I have other matters to attend to." The scene shifts to a quiet neighborhood, right outside Jinwoo's home. Parked nearby, a suspicious group of men sit inside a car, tension thick in the air. One of them hesitates. "Are we really going through with this?" Their leader scoffs. "Getting cold feet now," he says, his tone sharp. "Because of that man, our entire organization vanished without a trace. Don't you think it's only fair we leave him a little message?" With that, the group steps out of the car. The boss goes over the plan again, make it look like a simple break-in, just an unfortunate robbery where the wife and son of a former investigator became victims. As they approach the large house, they're surprised. No alarm system, no cameras, nothing. One of them mutters, "It's like they want to be robbed." Without delay, they vault over the wall and slip into the property. But something's off. The boss looks around and notices only one man is still behind him. "Where are the others?" he asks, confused. Before he can process what's happening, an enormous shadow looms over him. As he turns, still unaware, a massive claw engulfs his entire face. The figure holding him is none other than Beru. With a cold, commanding voice, Beru tells him, "Stay quiet. The young master has just fallen asleep. He is not to be disturbed by pests." The man's body trembles as Beru stares down at him with amusement. That expression, paralyzed by fear, was a familiar one. Yes, Beru thought. Being trusted by his liege and liked by the young heir is rewarding. But this was satisfying in its own primal way. The way prey looks at a predator, it never changes. The story then shifts to the world of Repose, Shadow World, where Essul and the Redairu clan work alongside the Shadow Soldiers to finish a grand project. As the final touches are completed, one of the dwarves excitedly informs Beru that the project is done. "What do you think?" he asks. Beru's many eyes gleam. "It's magnificent." He raises his voice proudly. "Our liege will be pleased. This statue, majestic and noble, will be a gift worthy of him." He pauses, his tone softening. "And maybe one day, when the young master walks this realm, he'll see it too." Just then, a strange sound breaks the moment. A child's voice echoes from behind. Beru freezes. Turning around with the others, he's stunned to see Suho. Somehow the boy has entered the shadow dungeon by himself. How? Beru whispers in disbelief. Time leaps forward a few years. We find Cha Hai-in visiting Suho's school. She sits with his teacher, who hands her a sketchbook. These are Suho's drawings, the teacher says. Cha flips through the pages. One image in particular stands out, an ant standing upright on two legs. The teacher explains, "We asked him to draw a friend, and this is what he made." Cha is surprised, but before she can ask more, the teacher shows her additional sketches, drawings of what Suho calls his family. On the final page is their house, but the base of the drawing is strange. "We asked him why he drew it that way," the teacher continues. "He said because that's where friends, family, and Big Dad are." The teacher admits, "At first I thought it might be something concerning, but Suho's a bright, joyful kid, and honestly his artwork is something special." The scene transitions to a busy police station, where cheers and applause fill the room. Officers surround Jin Wu, offering congratulations for his recent promotion. One of them grins and nudges him. "Come on, shouldn't you be treating us to a round or two now?" Later, as Jinwoo settles at his desk, a colleague leans in and asks, "You turned it down so many times before. Why accept the promotion now?" Jinwoo gives a small smile. "I just ran out of excuses." The two sit down, and the coworker casually asks, "Don't you want more? A higher post, better pay." Jinwoo pauses, tempted to say that years ago, he used to earn more than most top-tier lawyers, but instead he just chuckles and says, "I'll treat you today, so stop buttering me up." The story shifts again, this time to Jinwoo's home. He flips through a sketchbook filled with drawings, Suho's drawings. At just 5 years old, the boy's talent surprises him. "He's really something," Jinwoo says with admiration. Cha Hai-in, however, looks more concerned than amused. "Look at the last page." She explains that Suho told her there's a big dad living underground, surrounded by darkness. "Does that sound familiar to you?" she asks. But Jinwoo just laughs, brushing it off. Cha presses, "Why are you laughing?" "Nothing," Jinwoo replies, smiling to himself. "It just reminded me of something." Cha then shares something more troubling. The other kids at school are scared of him. He's never hurt them or even raised his voice. But when he walks toward them, they go pale. Jinwoo's expression darkens slightly. Deep down, he knows the reason. Children are sensitive. They can sense things adults cannot. Maybe they're sensing the remnants of the Shadow Monarch's power within Suho, the same force that once commanded death itself. He fears that if that power grows too strong within Suho, it could overwhelm him. Realizing this, Jinwoo turns to Cha and says, "We need to seal it away, his powers, and his memories of the shadows, at least until he's old enough to handle it." He hopes that by doing so, Suho can live a normal life, free of burden. With that, Jinwoo hands Beru the drawings Suho had made of him. Beru looks at them, visibly moved. Each image reveals the affection Suho had for him. "May I say goodbye to the young master?" he asks softly. Jinwoo nods. Beru enters the boy's room quietly. Suho is already asleep. Approaching the bedside, Beru kneels and whispers, "I've come to say farewell from all of us. It was an honor to serve you," he says. "Until we meet again, may you grow strong and happy." Then, Jinwoo places his hand on Suho's forehead and seals away the memories and powers buried within him. When it's done, they leave quietly. Suho sleeps peacefully, unaware that the memories of the shadows have quietly faded away, dissipating like mist in the morning sun. Time passes, and a few years slip by. Now a teenager, Suho has grown. A new chapter begins as he heads off to high school. The campus buzzes with life, students filled with energy and nervous excitement, chattering as they walk through the gates on their very first day. Amid the crowd, Suho walks quietly, calm and composed, his presence almost unnoticed among the eager newcomers. Inside the school hallway, students rush to find their classrooms, laughter and voices echoing against the walls, marking the start of a new journey. Inside one of the classrooms, a student named Lee Yun-cheol reunites with some old friends from middle school. As they catch up, a tall, sharp-eyed student named Ju Sung-ho walks over to him. The two exchange a tense glance before shaking hands. Lee recognizes him. He's heard rumors that Ju Sung-ho is a bit rough around the edges. Still, Lee figures it might not be so bad having someone like him around. Scanning the room, Lee starts gauging the social pecking order. That's when his eyes land on someone. Suho. He watches Suho curiously, but when Suho notices the stare and meets his gaze with a confused expression, Lee gets irritated. "Did you see that smug look?" he snaps at his friends. He didn't even bother to look away. Before Lee can act on his irritation, Ju Sung-ho steps in, advising him, "He went to my middle school. Trust me, just let it go." Lee's irritation boils over. "What, are you scared? You got a death wish or something?" The next scene cuts to outside the school. Ju Sung-ho lies on the ground, bruised and aching after a beating from Lee and his crew. Lee towers over him. "So this is the guy everyone thinks is strong. What a joke." He asks why he tried to protect that quiet kid from earlier. Through clenched teeth, Ju Sung answers, "That quiet kid. He was the strongest guy in our school. No one ever laid a hand on him. He had only stepped in because he sensed things could go very wrong again." Lee scoffs, furious. "You serious? If someone like that existed, I'd have heard about him." Fueled by rage, he starts hitting Ju Sung again. But then, footsteps. They all turn, and standing there is Suho. Calmly, Suho speaks. "That beating should be enough to justify what's about to happen." "Right." Ju Sung gives a small nod. Lee, confused and irritated, turns to Suho. "What are you even talking about?" Before he can finish, one of his lackeys is kicked clean across the schoolyard. The others freeze in shock. Before they can move, Suho takes out another lackey with a swift blow to the face. He drops instantly. Lee, now panicked, lunges at Suho with a punch, but Suho sees it coming. He counters with a high kick, effortlessly knocking the punch aside. Stunned, Lee barely processes what's happening before Suho launches a crushing kick beneath his chin, sending him airborne. He crashes down next to his unconscious friends. Suho turned to Ju Sung and said, "Since it's come to this, I'll leave the rest to you." Ju Sung nodded in agreement. As always, time skips ahead. We overhear two students chatting in the hallway, their voices filled with awe. "Did you hear? Ju Sung beat up Lee and his gang." "Yeah, I heard he's been training in judo since he was a kid." "Makes sense, huh?" The story shifts back to Suho, who's getting ready to leave school. He sighs, feeling a bit bored, and wonders if he should stop by an internet cafe before heading home. Just as he reaches for the classroom door, it refuses to budge. Puzzled, he peers out the window to call someone, but that's when he notices something strange. Everything outside is frozen. People, cars, even the leaves midair. Time itself has stopped. Stunned, Suho steps back. What is this? Before he can even process it, a swirling electric black portal opens up in the middle of the room. Its energy crackles with a power that feels both ancient and dangerous. Suho's thoughts immediately go to his father. What would he do in a moment like this? Bracing himself, he takes a deep breath and steps through. On the other side, his eyes widen in awe. The portal vanishes behind him, leaving Suho alone in a strange new place. It's like stepping into another world. Suho thinks the way back is blocked, and he has no choice but to move forward. Then he sees a long passage stretches out before him, lined with walls covered in countless weapons, swords, spears, daggers, and more. As he walks forward, a glowing message appears in front of one of the weapons, displaying its stats like something straight out of a video game. He checks the others. Each weapon has its own unique description. "This is like a game system," he mutters. He starts wondering if he's meant to choose a weapon, and if his choices are limited by some kind of level-based system. Maybe if he levels up, he'll unlock stronger gear. As he explores, Suho notices a set of weapons arranged in a dim corner, clearly separated from the rest. "Must be the junk pile," he jokes to himself. Who'd use something this weak-looking, he wonders, amused. Moving past it, his gaze falls on a pair of gauntlets. They're different, sleek, powerful. They seem to call out to him. He grins. Swords are cool, but way too cliché. With a confident nod, Suho reaches for the gauntlets. Now this is getting interesting. Time skips ahead, and Suho is now exploring the depths of a mysterious dungeon. Looking around, he wonders if he's wandered into the basement of some ancient castle. But just as he reaches the center of the hallway, something eerie begins to stir. Unbeknownst to him, the armor-clad knights lining the walls begin to move. Suddenly, without any warning, one of them lunges at him, sword raised to strike. Suho reacts just in time. Instinctively raising his gauntlets, he blocks the powerful slash. The force sends him skidding back, his heart racing as adrenaline kicks in. No time to panic. He steadies himself and drives his fist into the knight's chest, shattering it into pieces. A glowing notification appears in midair. Level up. But Suho doesn't have time to celebrate. He spins around, thinking back to all the knights he saw lining the halls on his way here. And then he sees them. An entire army of animated knights closing in from every direction. Fear grips him for a moment, but he clenches his fists, realizing the truth. He has to fight his way through them to escape. With no time to hesitate, the gauntlet-powered brawler charges forward, smashing his way through the enemies one after another. Each takedown earns him another level up, but he barely glances at the messages. He's too focused on survival. One after another, the armored soldiers fall before him, until finally the room grows silent. A final notification appears. Level 19 achieved. Panting, Suho surveys the broken armor scattered at his feet. It's like a game. Defeat enemies, gain experience, grow stronger. Still, one question lingers in his mind. How did I beat them at level 1? He wonders, staring at the dark aura pulsing from his body. What is this power inside me? Before long, he reaches a massive, ominous door. He grips the handle, thinking, if I want to survive, I need to get even stronger. The door creaks open, revealing a throne room, and seated at the far end is a towering figure, clad in jet black armor. A dark knight. Suho's breath catches. The sheer pressure of the creature's presence makes it clear. This one is no ordinary enemy. This is the boss. The knight rises slowly and grips his sword. Their eyes meet in a silent clash of wills. Suho braces to strike first, but before he can even move, the knight vanishes from sight. In an instant, he reappears, sword slicing through the air. Through Suho. A thunderous shockwave blasts through the chamber, leveling everything in its path. Suho wakes up again at the start of the dungeon. He stares at the ceiling, confused and frustrated. How am I still alive? Checking his surroundings, he realizes he's back where he started. He glances toward the torches on the wall and sees that one of the flames has gone out. He shrugs it off for now, thinking it must be a coincidence, and decides to change his gear. Now that he's stronger, he switches to upgraded gauntlets. But a thought lingers. What happens when all the flames go out? He dives back into battle, only to fall again. When he wakes, another torch is extinguished. Panic sets in. That night, he's too strong. Suho thinks back to the boss. At this rate, I'll never defeat him. As he regathers his gear, his eyes land on a weapon, one just like the boss was using. The level requirement is high. Too high. Suho shudders at the thought of the power gap. Later, armed to the teeth, Suho stands once more before a group of knights blocking his path. He scoffs. You guys aren't tired of this yet, but something clicks. They keep coming back again and again, like they're on an endless loop. He smirks. That means infinite EXP. With new determination, Suho charges into the fray. His movements grow sharper, faster, deadlier. While dealing with a heavily armored foe, he catches a glimpse of an archer drawing its bow. Before it can loose an arrow, Suho appears beside it and crushes it with a single punch. More notifications appear. Level up. Then, a new message. Class advancement unlocked. Accept quest. Without hesitation, Suho accepts. Portals open around him. A timer appears in the air, followed by a system message. Endure the trial. The longer you last, the more advancement points you gain. Suho cracks his knuckles. So it's a survival test, huh? He grins. This might be more fun than I thought. The scene jumps ahead. A beast cloaked in robes, clearly a mage, begins gathering energy. Flames swirl in its palms as it finishes casting a massive fireball. With a roar, it hurls the blazing orb, detonating a fiery explosion that rocks the entire room. But Suho reacts just in time, leaping out of range before the blast engulfs him. He's clearly exhausted now. No matter how many enemies he strikes down, more seem to take their place. Just then, Suho notices more mages in the distance, chanting ominous spells. Above him, a gigantic fireball starts to form. Its size alone is terrifying. There's no escaping this one. Realizing that, he plants his feet, raises his shield, and braces for impact. He holds strong but barely. With his body still smoking from the blast, he spots another incantation being completed. This time, it summons a towering stone golem, its footsteps shaking the ground. Frustrated, Suho drops his shield, muttering that he's done relying on defense. Like lightning, he closes the distance and unleashes a barrage of strikes, his raw strength reducing the golem to rubble. Without pause, he grabs the massive sword from his back and flings it like a spear. It cleaves through the remaining magic beast with terrifying force. The sword crashes into the wall, leaving nothing but shards of armor in its wake. Suho doesn't stop. He draws a bow, charges it with mana, and fires. The arrow blasts through the monsters like a missile. He appears behind a distracted knight and without hesitation, slices through its helmet with dual daggers. Then he flings the blades at two others, eliminating them instantly. Breathing heavily, Suho grins. "Who needs weapons?" he mutters. "Real warriors fight with their fists." The battlefield quiets, the room now filled with broken armor and shattered weapons. Suho stands alone. He had just soloed an entire army of magical beasts. Suddenly, a system message appears. He's gathered enough points to unlock a new class. Another message pops up. His class will be determined by his achievements. The system declares that Suho's fighting spirit has triumphed over every challenge. He didn't back down, no matter the odds. Because of that, he is granted the fighter class. But that's not the end. Due to his exceptional performance, a second evaluation begins. The system calculates his total advancement points. Bonus time survived, over 50% HP remaining, all enemies defeated, everything adds up. And the result? His new class, Soul Striker. Power surges through him, but he's not satisfied. To face the true boss, he still needs more. As he reflects, the knights begin respawning. A system warning appears. The longer he remains in one spot, the more enemies will be summoned. Hours pass. Suho keeps grinding, defeating wave after wave, collecting rare items. The A-grade necklace of the Watchman, the superior ring of the Mage, and finally, the S-class scorching gauntlets of the Fighting Phantom. Now fully equipped and stronger than ever, he returns to the throne room. There sits Igris, the Black Knight, unmoved since their last encounter. But something's different. Suho's power now radiates like never before. Stepping forward, he casually asks, "Hope I didn't keep you waiting." And then, this time it's my turn. His current level 70, and he's just getting started. As the battle begins, Igris doesn't waste a second. Without warning, he launches a wave of crackling electricity at Suho. Caught off guard, Suho barely manages to dodge at the last moment, only to find Igris already closing the distance. Reacting quickly, Suho swings with force, but Igris intercepts the blow with his blade. The impact sends shockwaves through the chamber, ripping the surroundings apart in a thunderous explosion. Flames engulf them both, but when the smoke clears, they're still standing. Igris strikes again, his blade slashing through the air in rapid succession. Suho dodges each attack with razor-sharp reflexes, but he's unable to land a clean hit in return. The realization hits him. He's still not fast enough. As he searches for an opening, Igris seizes the moment and delivers a crushing blow. Suho blocks with his gauntlets, but the sheer force sends him flying across the room. He crashes into a pillar, but rebounds instantly, locking eyes with Igris as the knight charges in. Channeling all his strength into his fist, Suho launches a devastating punch. Igris raises his sword just in time to block, but even he feels the weight behind that strike. In that instant, Igris silently acknowledges Suho's power. He truly carries the blood of a monarch. With renewed focus, Igris forces Suho back. He senses the young fighter still hasn't tapped into his full strength. Suho, catching his breath, begins to realize something. He is holding his own. But this night, he's in a league of his own. These aren't like the fodder soldiers he mowed down before. Igris is different, special. And if Igris is extraordinary, then so is Suho. Reflecting on his journey, Suho remembers. Even from level 1, he had bonus stats. He defeated enemies well above his rank with ease, and if every level gave him +1 to every stat, then his current power isn't that of a level 70 fighter. It's closer to level 110. At that moment, he hurls Igris through a wall, and then a new notification appears. Suho has unlocked a title, Young Monarch. As a result, all his stats increase by 40 points, thanks to the inheritance of the Shadow Monarch. Igris struggles to rise, but before he can react, Suho is already there. One thunderous punch sends Igris crashing through the wall, and Suho doesn't stop. He unleashes a relentless combo, forcing Igris back with blow after blow. The battle rages into a different part of the dungeon. Both warriors land on their feet, but only barely. Without hesitation, Suho strikes again, unleashing an attack so powerful it sends shock waves echoing through the chamber. Cracks form across Igris's armor. He stares at Suho with growing respect. This young warrior is his liege's son, a natural-born fighter who carries the legacy of the Shadow Monarch. Even without mastering his power, Suho has drawn out strength that rivals Monarchs. As Igris ponders this, Suho approaches, his final blow incoming. Accepting his defeat with honor, Igris closes his eyes. The strike lands. Igris's form shatters into fragments of light and vanishes. The battlefield falls silent. Suho, exhausted, stands alone once more. Then, ding. A system message flashes. You've leveled up. Suho throws his fist in the air. Victory is his, and he's only getting stronger. Just as Suho was catching his breath, a new portal began to shimmer into existence behind him. Alert, he turned to face it, wondering if it might be an exit from this strange world. Without hesitation, he stepped through, curious about where it might lead. On the other side, Suho found himself near a familiar building. It looked like the D Tower in the Songpa district, but the entire structure was engulfed in flames. As he examined the fiery scene, he sensed something nearby. Turning his head, he came face to face with Cerberus, the mighty guardian of the demon realm. Despite the beast's towering presence, Suho remained calm and unfazed. The two locked eyes in silence. But when Cerberus looked closer, he caught a glimpse of Jinwoo in Suho's presence. The realization made the beast freeze in place, overwhelmed with fear. Suho, however, simply assumed it was a strange-looking statue and continued walking, unaware of the terror he inspired. He soon reached a large door leading into the demon realm itself. Unsure of what lay ahead, but knowing nothing would change unless he acted, he pushed the door open and walked in. What greeted him was a quiet corridor, and beyond it, a burning city overrun by swarms of demons. As the monsters charged toward him, Suho stood his ground. Moments later, the battlefield fell silent. Suho was the last one standing, surrounded by the remains of countless defeated enemies. Yet despite his overwhelming victory, something in his expression revealed confusion, as if he still hadn't found what he was looking for. He pressed onward, clearing floor after floor with ease. The 10th, 20th, and even 30th floors offered no challenge. Every foe crumbled under his strength. By now, boredom was setting in. The monsters were simply too weak. Eventually, he reached the 50th floor and faced the floor's boss. Suho clashed with another floor boss while questioning whether he had grown too powerful too quickly, all just to fight that Black Knight. Still, he kept climbing, thinking the tower was vast. But if he pushed himself, he could conquer 1 floor per hour. Then came the 100th floor. Suho wasn't expecting much, not after everything else. But as he looked ahead, his eyes widened. There stood a regal female demon surrounded by knights. Strangely, she was smiling. Deciding not to waste time, Suho leapt forward, aiming to end the battle quickly. But before he could strike, the demoness called out in a human tongue, surprising him. She urged him to wait. Her voice trembled as she spoke. She reminded him that during his last attempt, he hadn't made it nearly this far. Suho, puzzled, asked what she meant, but the demoness simply told him not to dwell on it. She then introduced herself formally as Essel, the eldest daughter of the top-ranked demon clan, Ridéru. But instead of being impressed, Suho was visibly disappointed. Was this really all the tower had to offer? Essel admitted it was. She explained that there used to be a final boss, a demon king, but after their clan achieved the top rank, that stage was removed. She congratulated Suho on completing the tower for the first time and added that a grand celebration awaited him, prepared by the clan's leader. But Suho's eyes caught something else. He pointed beyond her and asked, if this was the end, what was that? Essel turned and noticed a gate standing ominously nearby. She told Suho that the gate led to an entirely different dimension. Without a second thought, Suho prepared to leave. Essel called out to stop him, mentioning the banquet in his honor, but Suho waved it off with a cheeky grin, saying, I don't even know what demons eat, and besides, I'm not old enough to drink yet. Maybe in a few years. Hearing that, Essel could only smile and accept it, but suddenly her expression changed. She froze as a memory surfaced. Suho's words echoed something she had heard before, a promise made long ago that they'd meet again, but he never returned. It had been 60 years since the demon castle had fallen into silence. Since then, the only time they'd been contacted was to help build sculptures. Before she could speak again, Suho mispronounced both her name and her clan's title, calling her Isel of the Radis clan. He told her he'd remember that. Essel blinked and then chuckled. She offered a warm farewell and wished him the best. With that, Suho stepped into the gate, wondering if it really led to freedom, or perhaps something worse. Was the tower not the end of the strange world? What greeted him next was far from peace. A swarm of glowing red eyes stared back at him in the darkness. As he moved forward, he realized he had emerged into a vast underground cave, crawling with insect-like creatures. Annoyed, Suho clenched his fists. More fighting, more monsters. He sighed and charged in. Time passed, and insect corpses now littered the cavern. Not far from them, Suho was running, dodging attacks while muttering to himself, what kind of insane ants are these? The relentless horde kept closing in. Suho had no choice but to fight back, clearing them out while realizing just how endless this seemed. As he pummeled through the swarm, notifications appeared. He was leveling up. At least that was something. With the room nearly cleared, Suho realized he was adapting to their movements. Eyes fixed on the boss room ahead, he moved to see what awaited him inside. The moment he entered, a strange silence hung in the air. The chamber was enormous. Suho paused, wondering just how massive the boss had to be if the space was built to the scale. But he didn't immediately notice the figure approaching him. Beru slowly walked forward. Suho squinted, confused. Why did it look like he was crying? Before he could dwell on it further, Beru lunged forward, and their clash began. The room shook with each blow as the two traded rapid, powerful strikes. Beru launched an attack, but Suho dodged and countered with a swift kick to his opponent's gut. Beru staggered but didn't fall. Instead, he raised a hand, as if trying to say something to plead. Suho ignored it and delivered a heavy uppercut under Beru's chin. He dove back into the fight, and as Suho struggled to keep up, Beru paused, hesitating. Suho noticed it, confused. Before he could figure it out, Beru healed all his injuries and charged again. This time, he was done holding back. Slashing with full force, Beru's claw missed Suho, but tore through the ground behind him with a violent shockwave. Suho steadied himself. Again, he noticed the tears. Again, Beru seemed to plead for him to stop. But Suho pushed forward, one more crushing punch straight to Beru's face. His face twisted in frustration, and Suho couldn't help but wonder, what was going on with this strange monster? Suddenly, Beru's instincts flared to life. Suho had unknowingly triggered a primal urge within him, one that screamed to fight with lethal force. But just as quickly, Beru reined it in. He managed to stop himself, muttering internally that he had gotten careless. Then out of nowhere, Beru collapsed to the floor. Suho stood stunned as a notification flashed before him. He had leveled up. Somehow, he had defeated the creature. He couldn't believe it. That winged monster was terrifying, yet it had acted so strangely, pausing between attacks, leaving wide openings. It was almost like it hadn't wanted to fight at all. Suho shrugged off the thought. Whatever the reason, he'd barely scraped through, and now another gate appeared behind him. Checking his level, he noticed something odd. It hadn't gone up any further. Maybe, just maybe, this was the real exit. He stepped through. But on the other side, what greeted him was far from peaceful. Towering beasts and dragons loomed ahead, forming a new battlefield. Suho let out a weary sigh. He was exhausted, but there was no time to rest. With a frustrated grunt, he launched himself into the fray, muttering, "It's always one thing after another." As he fought through wave after wave, he noticed something troubling. His level still wasn't increasing. Amid the chaos, a reptilian monster that stood out from the rest charged at him. It looked stronger than the others. Suho dodged its swipe and leaped up, landing a crushing blow under its chin. But just when he thought he had a breather, another massive creature barreled toward him, sword in hand. Suho blocked the incoming strike, and the weapon shattered against his gauntlets like glass. Without hesitation, he sprinted up the giant's body. Before it could react, he drove a brutal knee into its chin, dropping it instantly. Suho landed lightly, still on alert. But the battle wasn't over. Charging straight at him were two orcs, riding bears. Wasting no time, Suho dashed forward, shattering one orc's sword and crushing its hand. From there, he turned his attention to the remaining enemies. With swift, decisive strikes, he cut them down one after another. The sight of their comrades falling caused the remaining orcs to scatter. Suho pursued them, but he didn't realize it was a trap. From above, a new wave of orcs descended, hoping to catch him off guard. But Suho noticed in time, yet the ambush wasn't over. A dragon-riding orc swooped in toward him. Suho barely evaded the jaws snapping at him, rolling out of the way just in time. But then as he looked up, his eyes widened. A vast army of orcs and dragons were descending upon him. Groaning, Suho stared at the sky. Seriously again. One particularly massive orc came barreling toward him. Suho scoffed, asking mockingly, "You want to take this to the skies?" Before the orc could swing, a blur of movement cut him off. A massive hand slammed into the orc's face, launching him off his dragon mount like a ragdoll. Taking the opportunity, Suho jumped onto the wyvern and fought back, taking down airborne enemies with brutal efficiency. Then a strange light caught his attention. Looking toward the source, he saw massive stone giants descending from the heavens. Atop one stood a shadowy warrior, clearly no ordinary soldier. The figure spoke with pride. It had been 30 years since he joined the Central Force from the land of repose, and now as a warrior of martial rank, he had earned the right to test his strength in this battle. He looked down at Suho and asked smugly, "Do you think you can handle me at full strength?" Suho didn't have the patience for speeches. Before the soldier could say another word, Suho's fist met his face, sending the arrogance flying out of him. And without slowing down, Suho shattered the remaining stone giants into rubble with effortless strikes. Without warning, a crushing force pressed down on him, and not just him, but every stone creature around him slammed back into the ground as if gravity had multiplied tenfold. Suho struggled to move, the weight of an overwhelming power bearing down on him. What is this pressure? He wondered, barely able to lift his head. Then he saw it, a massive shadowy figure hovering above. It was Tusk. Suho narrowed his eyes, wondering if this horned creature was the one pulling the strings. Its presence felt similar to the other shadowy monsters. The knight, the ant. Could this one be the boss? But before he could figure it out, the force holding him down faded. Suho caught his breath and quickly thought, if I just take that one down, maybe I can finally leave this place. Then came a twist. Out of the smoke surrounding Tusk, 3 colossal dragons emerged, each cloaked in that same shadowy aura. Suho tensed. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe this wasn't just one final fight. It was a whole new wave of chaos. The dragons wasted no time. They opened their jaws and rained fire across the battlefield, turning the air around Suho into a sea of flames. But then from within the blaze, a streak of light shot out. It smashed into one of the dragons, sending it crashing down. Then it zipped to the second, landing a blow square in its chest, and moved toward the third, dropping all 3 like dominoes. The light finally touched down, revealing Suho, who'd plowed through the trio with shocking ease. But his fight wasn't over. Before the dust settled, he launched himself toward the remaining enemies, only to be hit by the same crushing pressure as before. It slammed him into the earth like a meteor, burying him deep. Even so, Suho didn't quit. He clawed his way out, jumped onto another wyvern, and soared back into the fray. That's when he spotted someone in the distance, a figure who looked particularly annoying to deal with. "Guess I'll handle you first," Suho muttered. But just as he prepared to attack, something caught his eye. Tusk was preparing something. The flames from earlier had started to gather in front of him, forming a massive sphere of raw fire. Tusk raised his staff and pointed it, not at Suho, but beyond him. The flaming orb launched through the air and collided with a nearby mountain. A split second later, the entire mountaintop exploded in a blinding eruption of fire and energy, leveling everything around it. Suho stared in stunned silence, mouth open, body frozen. The sheer power behind the blast had left him shaken. Watching from above, Tusk nodded in satisfaction. "Just as I thought," he mused to himself. "Way cooler when you've got a staff." He turned towards Suho again and noticed the look of dread on the boy's face. While the fight pressed on, the scene jumped forward. Suho was now tearing through the remaining monsters, wiping out everything in his path with relentless speed. Eventually, he came face to face with the shadow soldiers again. Among them was the same warrior he had taken down earlier, somehow still alive, and now standing alongside Jima and the dragons. The soldier grinned. "You thought that was enough to defeat me," he taunted. Suho didn't even reply. He just charged forward, and like before, wiped the smirk right off his face with a bone-shattering kick. Then came another opponent, racing towards Suho with fury in his eyes. "I've climbed this far on grit alone," the soldier shouted. "Even if no one remembers me, I'll make sure my loyalty is never forgotten." He lunged, unleashing a powerful attack as Suho hovered midair. Suho vanished from sight, reappearing a moment later and taking him out with a single lightning-fast blow. He turned toward the rest of the Shadow Army, frustrated. "No matter how many of them I take down, they just keep coming," he thought. He could feel the fatigue creeping in. His stamina wasn't going to last much longer. But Suho clenched his fists, refusing to back down. "I just need to hold out a little more, refine my control, and fight like someone ready to take on an entire army." As he focused, flames ignited around him, forming a ring of blazing fists. With a shout, he unleashed them all at once, his barrage driving the shadow soldiers back in every direction. Slowly, one by one, they began fading into nothing. From a distance, Tusk watched in disbelief at the raw power Suho was displaying. Acting quickly, Tusk summoned a magical barrier in front of himself to block the incoming blows. But he didn't realize it was all a trap. Suho had already moved. Appearing behind him in a blur, Suho smirked. "If this is all you've got, this is going to be really boring." Then, with a devastating strike, he sent Tusk crashing into the earth. The moment he hit the ground, Tusk vanished like the rest. His time was up. Silence returned to the battlefield. Suho stood alone, the mana around him pulsing like a storm. All his enemies were down. He looked around at the devastation. "My stats haven't changed," he thought, "but I've gained so much control over my powers." Before he could celebrate, something shifted in the air. He felt a heavy presence above him. Looking up, Suho spotted a new figure descending, a powerful shadow soldier unlike any he'd faced so far. This one felt different, stronger, maybe even more dangerous than the ant creature from before. Suho narrowed his eyes and called out, "Can you talk? I want to ask something." He paused, then continued, "How much of your full force have I faced so far?" The Bellian responded, "Excluding the Demon Castle, you fought about 0.03% gather here." Suho's eyes widened. He had fought through countless enemies, and that was just a fraction. Still, he readied himself and told the soldier, "Doesn't matter. I'm ready." The Bellian nodded and slowly unsheathed his weapon. "You've grown magnificently," he said. "Young lord." Before Suho could question him, the figure suddenly blurred, and in the next instant, he was right in front of Suho. Instinct attack, and Suho barely dodged the first strike. He countered with his own attack, demanding, "Why do you keep calling me the young lord? What does that mean? Is it connected to how I ended up in this place?" But in his moment of anger, he let his guard down. Bellian slipped behind him and struck Suho hard in the side. Pain shot through Suho's body. He grit his teeth and braced himself. But that wasn't the end. Bellian's sword morphed, shifting into a whip that coiled around Suho from every direction. Still, Suho refused to give up. He fought through the pain, waiting for the right moment, and then it came. He grabbed the weapon mid-whip. No matter how flexible your weapon is, he thought, once I have it, it's over. He lunged forward and delivered a crushing blow straight to Bellian's chest. The impact sent shockwaves behind him, blasting chunks of stone into the distance. Bellian staggered, but remained standing. Suho followed up with a powerful kick to his gut. If you guard with both arms, Suho said, smirking, you leave your stomach wide open. Before Bellian could recover, Suho launched another attack, faster, stronger. The force of the hit sent Bellian flying into the air, and the ground beneath him exploded from the impact. With Bellian clearly unable to continue the fight, Suho stood over him and spoke calmly. I didn't think you'd fall this easily. If we kept going, we'd be here all night. He looked at Bellian curiously and asked, aren't you the master of this place? But there was no response. That silence told Suho everything he needed to know. Bellian was just another warrior, not the one pulling the strings. Lifting his gaze to the sky, Suho scanned the horizon. And that's when he saw it, a massive wyvern gliding through the clouds. More importantly, someone was riding it. The moment their eyes met, the figure vanished, only to reappear directly in front of Suho in a flash of dark energy. Without hesitation, the rider launched downward at breakneck speed. The moment he landed, the very earth beneath him crumbled to dust from the impact. Now standing face to face, Suho could feel it. This one was different. This was the final test. Dark energy surged around the figure as he summoned a pair of daggers into his hands. Suho's eyes widened. He remembered those daggers. More than the weapons, what surprised him most was the figure's form. It was humanoid. Could this one be reasoned with? Suho tried speaking, hoping to resolve things peacefully, but the figure gave no answer. As Suho tried to make sense of it all, something unexpected happened. A gate appeared behind the figure. Confused, Suho asked himself, why is a gate opening when I haven't defeated the boss yet? Realization hit him. This must be it, the final challenge. Once I defeat him, I can finally go home. With that thought, both warriors charged at each other. When they collided, the shockwaves shattered the ground and sent chunks of rock flying in all directions. But Suho was immediately pushed back. The opponent's strength was terrifying. Still, Suho fought back, exchanging blows in a rapid, brutal dance. Even while under pressure, Suho was awed. He's not just strong, he's precise. Every attack from the enemy was calculated, each strike infused with honed technique. As Suho absorbed the blows, a thought echoed in his mind. How many times must someone die and come back to gain this level of mastery? He managed to jump back, putting some distance between them. Catching his breath, he clenched his fists. I'm not going down like this. Launching himself forward again, he thought, my stats may have peaked, and I have pushed my combat instincts to match them. His strength may overwhelm me, but I still see a path to victory. But just as Suho went in for another strike, the enemy vanished, only to reappear behind him in an instant. A series of slashes tore through Suho's body. He staggered, pain ripping through him. Looking down, his eyes widened, his gauntlet shattered into pieces. Breathing heavily, Suho couldn't help but think, he's incredible. Even if this mysterious warrior stood as his enemy, Suho couldn't help but admire him. If I could become as strong as him someday? He thought while leaping back, bracing for another clash. But just as his attack was about to land, the man dodged with ease. But instead of a counterattack, the man reached out and gently patted Suho on the head. In a calm, almost fatherly tone, he asked, did you enjoy the game? Suho froze. That voice, it sounded so familiar. He slowly looked up, and his eyes widened in disbelief. The man standing in front of him was his father. Before he could utter a word, his father smiled gently and pushed him toward the gate behind them. It's still too early for you, he said. Suho reached out, trying to stop himself, but he was already falling through the gate. The next moment, he jolted awake at his desk, gasping for air. Panting, Suho looked around in confusion. He was back in his classroom, sunlight spilling through the windows. Sitting up slowly, he tried to make sense of it all. A dream. He touched his head, still feeling the weight of everything that happened. Blushing slightly, he muttered, "That was one weird dream. Maybe I've been playing too many games. The dungeon, the monsters, the boss at the end was my father." Before he could process more, a voice called out to him, "Why are you still in class this late?" Looking up, he saw one of his classmates. She told him she was about to lock up the classroom. Trying to play it cool, Suho offered to help. As they moved through the halls, locking doors and windows, high above, the Jinwoo and his shadows watched him. Among them, Igris spoke. "Isn't it time we return the young monarch's powers?" he asked. "We've tested him before, but this was the first time he made it to the final floor." He looked toward the figure ahead of them. Jinwoo didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Do you think we could have defeated the Dragon King if I had just rushed in without thinking? Even overwhelming power can mean nothing if used recklessly." He looked down thoughtfully. "Sometimes survival means knowing when to step back. It's not cowardice, it's wisdom." After a long pause, he added, "He's not ready yet, but he'll learn. With time." Just then, he noticed Baru, standing quietly, tears brimming in his eyes. He was watching Suho from afar. Seeing this, Jinwoo smiled softly. Jinwoo turned to his loyal soldiers. "I have a few things to take care of," he said. "But when I'm done, let's have dinner together. As a family." The story transitions to a different part of the world, where civilians go about their day as a news broadcast airs in the background. The anchor announces that the infamous Hwang Dong-suk and Hwang Dong-soo, who had caused widespread disruption, were finally apprehended earlier that day. Moments later, the same reporter shifts the tone, now updating viewers on a large-scale wildfire threatening nearby homes. Thanks to the swift response of 52 fire trucks and over 800 firefighters, the blaze was finally contained. Among the exhausted responders is Baek Yun-ho, sitting against a tree and catching his breath. Just then, someone places a chilled bottle of water gently against his face, making him jump slightly. He looks up and sees Hunter Sung standing there, offering a quiet smile. Baek takes the bottle, offering thanks, and watches him for a moment, thinking how impressive it is that he still has energy left after fighting such a monstrous fire. "I wish I could be that strong someday," Baek muses. But just as that thought settles in, he points to the sky, noticing something flying overhead. When he mentions it to Hunter Sung, he casually replies, "Probably just a plane." The scene then shifts again, this time to a busy office hallway where two men walk side by side. Jinho asks, "Where were we talking about?" The man recalls they were discussing a new title for their upcoming virtual reality game, but his Jinho seems lost in thought. Without warning, the Jinho opens the door to a conference room and declares, "My wife's pregnant." The room erupts in surprise and cheers, proudly announcing that they're 6 weeks along. Beaming, he strolls to his desk and casually tosses out an idea. "Let's name the game Beautiful World." His co-workers exchange glances, clearly unconvinced. One of them voices that the fate of their company rests on this title, and maybe he should reconsider. Watching their reactions, Jinho scratches his head, wondering if his naming sense is really that bad. He even considers asking Jin Wu for name ideas, until he remembers his friend was never good with names either. Brushing it off with a laugh, he reassures the team. "Don't worry too much. We've got major backing this time." He reveals their latest investor, a huge name in the industry, Choi Jong-in. Meanwhile, in a separate scene, we see a printed article about Jinho's life choices. It explains how the heir to a powerful conglomerate gave up his position to start a humble game studio. The person reading the article asks if there are more stories like it. The assistant shakes his head, replying, "Not yet, but there will be." The reader turns out to be Jinho's father, who scoffs at his son's decision to reject the carefully built legacy. But even so, he softens slightly and murmurs, "I just want to see my grandchild soon." The scene then pans away from the building, rising high above the city skyline. The camera climbs beyond the clouds, and then the sky itself begins to fracture. Cracks spread across the heavens like broken glass. Suddenly, we're no longer on Earth, but floating far beyond it in the cold silence of space. And looming just above the planet is a colossal gate. The story flashes back to a time when Jinwoo was still considered the weakest of hunters, barely ranked at E-class. In this world, mysterious portals began appearing all over the globe, gates that connected Earth to another realm filled with terrifying monsters. The fear was always the same. What if those gates broke, releasing the horrors inside? But in the face of such fear, some chose to fight back. These brave individuals stepped through the gates, risking their lives to protect the world. They were known as hunters. We then cut to the support department of the Hunter Association, where a flustered employee answers a call, only to be berated by a team leader. Furious, the caller demands to know why Jin Wu keeps getting assigned to his squad, despite repeated warnings. "If this keeps up," he shouts, "next time it'll be a corpse you're dealing with." After the call ends, the worker reflects on how, in their world, the most desirable jobs were either becoming a famous hunter, joining a major guild, or working within the Hunter Association itself. Setting his thoughts aside, he returns to his pile of chores, requests from hunters asking for assistance with mundane matters. While reviewing a stack of files, his eyes land on Jinwoo's. Reading through it, he's surprised. Jinwoo's stats were so low, he was practically a civilian. The fact he was still alive was astonishing. Curious, the man wonders what keeps someone that powerless going. Then he reads further. Jinwoo's mother is hospitalized with an incurable condition, and he has a younger sibling still in school. Suddenly, it all makes sense. Later, the man speaks with the department chief, questioning if they should finally intervene and stop Jinwoo from entering any more gates. But the chief reminds him, they already tried. He then asks the worker why he joined the association. Caught off guard, the man shares a childhood memory, seeing a news report about a hunter who got trapped inside a gate while trying to save his team. That moment stuck with him. He always wondered, who saves the saviors? The chief smiles and asks him, so then, does he want Jinwoo to quit? Or help him? The man hesitates, then admits all he can do is tell Jinwoo to stop. But the chief offers a different path. He hands over a stack of documents, files on people who awakened with high potential, but chose not to become hunters. Among them is a woman named Jai-hee, a B-rank healer, who refused to join the front lines out of fear. The chief explains that while some are paralyzed by fear, others, like Jinwoo, step forward in spite of it. And sometimes seeing someone brave enough to act can ignite courage in others. He asks the man again, will he help? And this time, the man says yes. We then return to the present. Suho walks home with his classmate. They play rock, paper, scissors, and he loses, now stuck carrying her bag. But suddenly he pauses, sensing something strange in the air. She asks if something's wrong. He shrugs it off. Far above, a massive dragon cuts through the sky. On its back rides Jinwoo, with Cha-hai-in by his side. She comments on how long it's been since she last saw such a sight. Then she looks at Jinwoo and smiles. He'd brought her a gift for their 16th wedding anniversary. He tells her to go home ahead of him. He has something left to do. She asks if he'll return soon, and he nods. With warmth in her eyes, she says she'll be waiting. After she leaves, Jinwoo looks up. A colossal gate looms in the sky. He remembers something he once heard, that those with immense power can act like magnets, drawing the threats of other worlds toward them. With that, he summons his strongest soldiers and prepares to step into the unknown once again. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, we see defeated enemies. Suho stares at a door, wondering what might lie beyond it. Could it be something completely beyond anything he's faced before? Could it mean his end? But he knows he'll never find out unless he opens it. He moves forward. On the wall nearby, 3 lanterns burn. One flickers and dies. Suho lies on the ground exhausted. He wonders how many days have passed. Still, he pushes himself up, determined to try again. Another lantern fades. Now with just one chance remaining, Suho steadies himself. In the back of his mind, he keeps hearing a voice calling to him. Arise. He faces the door one more time. This could be his last chance. But if it helps him grow, if it keeps him from standing still, then he'll take it. As the door creaks open, Suho wondered, whatever lies beyond that door, I want to challenge it. A radiant light spills out, growing until it swallows everything. The season ends here. That wraps up the side stories in the main chapters of solo leveling. Up next, we're diving into the highly anticipated solo leveling, Ragnarok series, and I couldn't be more excited for what's coming. Thanks so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.